last look, they weren't there today, but she must have just uploaded them because they weren't online. Oh, so I wasn't able to go. Because I did.
I got nothing.
One of them was dead. I tried that last week. Yeah, I think there's one that has a dead battery.
So just share.
Somebody can teach residential parking?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The chair needs a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. The chair needs a motion to approve the board meeting minutes from August 2nd, 2023 and August 9th, 2023.
I make a motion to approve the board meeting minutes from August 2nd, 2023 to August 9th, 2023.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. Discussion?
Just one question before approving these minutes. I just was curious the status of the other minutes that were missing.
They're in process, being developed right now.
Okay. So hopefully we'll see them next time.
Correct.
Okay. Sure, thank you.
Thank you for the extended version on these. It's nice to see that.
Okay. All those in favor of the meeting minutes, please say aye.
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 Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Okay, next up is comments from the audience. Limit 2 minutes. First up. Did I miss something?
Actually, Chair Rutledge, I just realized because I had downloaded this whole packet, and the meeting minutes, I was able to get them to review them really quickly from Vice Chair Brown, but they aren't posted, and so for some reason on the regular site, I don't know if they're posted on the board's board book.
You have to speak in.
The meeting minutes are actually not posted on the website. I was able to see them from Vice Chair Brown, but they're not showing up on the public website. And I didn't go back into board books, but they're not there. Just a note that they're not in board books either.
They are not on board books. They are on the district website. The minutes that have been approved are on, but I did miss getting them up on here. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. On to public comments. First up is Dan Brown.
Hello, my name's Dan Brown, parent and live in West Bonner County. Thanks for coming to the lake. First up on the policy, Chairman or Margie addressed that, but also in the policies and review, it'd be nice to list them on the website, the ones that are being spoken about. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Here, go ahead and pick it up.
All right. This or this?
That.
All right. Policies and review status, it'd be nice to post them on the website. There's a spot for them on the district website. I just didn't find any of them there. And then on the virtual learning side of things, I think we are in a good place right now that connectivity is an issue here at Priest Lake as well as other places in West Bonner County, so something to take into consideration. And then when Denver Wonders was being discussed, the curriculum, part of the argument against Wonders was it had an online content and a version that was going to be virtual, and folks felt that wasn't going to be fair to students that lack connectivity. And then 3, when it comes to the virtual learning, who will control the content of the virtual learning will be a concern of mine. And That's all I had.
Thank you. Next up is Brooke Ramsey.
Hi, excuse me, Brooke Ramsey for the record. I want to address the gender policy. And so regarding the sex-based restrooms, I noticed that it said if somebody requested accommodations, those be provided. So I'm wondering what those accommodations looks like if a student does request those, as far as a different restroom or changing facility. Also, if we're talking about student safety, I would like to focus less on pronouns, on more what is actually a safety issue. Idaho Code 188329, which deals with registered sexual offenders on school grounds, which they can come to during teacher conferences, sporting events, extracurriculars, voting, that type of thing. But the ones that concern me are the ones where there's going to be kids around. States that there's nothing to prevent school districts from adopting more stringent safety requirements concerning sexual offenders on school grounds. I would like to ask what stricter restrictions do we have in place to keep our children safe? I did read our district policy, and I appreciate that we have more protocol than is what state is mandated. But I would like to know, though, what exactly does it mean when it says that the sexual offender must remain under supervision of a assigned school official? Does that mean that that school official sits next to them at a basketball game or at a football game, or does that just mean they have to be in the same building? Basically, I would just like some clarification on that matter. Thank you.
Next up, Sandy Brower.
Sandy Brower for the record. I was able to attend a town hall held on Saturday, and at the town hall, it was indicated that we were $10,000 in the rears for Verizon. So I did look at the bills, and I wondered why we're not paying them this month or paid them last month. I also looked past to January 2022 and saw a payment to Verizon for every month. So curious if we can get some more clarity on that. Also wanted to know why the district didn't pay the water bill to the city last month. I see that we are late on that one. And I want to know why Mr. Durst isn't being paid as well. So if I can get clarity on that. And also curious why the admin salary options are being considered prior to teachers having been provided a contract. And the other thing about the minutes, I'm glad Margie brought that up. We're missing a lot of minutes that are even approved are not on this site, or on board book, which typically they're on the board book, so they're not there. And the minutes that have been approved, I'm curious, we've got minutes approved before June and after June, yet the June 27th, 28th, and July 5th are not approved yet. And seeing how, in order for Brandon to apply for an emergency provisional certification, he would need the minutes approved from June 28th. I want to assume good intent here. However, I've requested these minutes to be approved for several meetings prior to this one. So I'm kind of curious what's going on with that. And I would request that the chair and the superintendent place these on the agenda for the next meeting. But now I'm really concerned about that too, because that'll be after you apply, because I think you're applying at the end of the month. So if my understanding is correct, and maybe you guys can clear it up, is that the minutes need to be approved. And so I'm curious when that's going to get done. So I know I sound like a broken record, but get those minutes on the agenda.
Next up, Katie Alsazar, and she has requested 4 minutes.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay, I'm just going to talk because the mic seems to be. So thanks for the additional time. Most of this is actually directed to Mr. George, but I wanted to address the handbook that's being proposed, as well as graduation requirements. For several years now, the high school handbook and the board policy graduation requirements don't line up. So if a student goes onto the high school website and clicks the graduation requirements, that goes to the board policy, versus the handbook, you have two different numbers. Now, everyone who's been in the district for a long time knows we've switched from 6 period days to block schedule with 8 periods, and everyone that makes credits shift. Problem is, right now, we have seniors going into their senior year, and while there's changes to the amount due to the 4-day school week and the 7-period day, there's not a aligned board policy being proposed. So seniors who are about to start school in 2 weeks, they don't have a clear credit requirement. There's not a clear thing because it says ultimately it goes to board policy. So the board numbers don't line up with with the high school's handbook. So I think that really needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. Additionally, I don't know if a new guidance counselor has been hired. When I was in high school, we used to be able to go work on our schedules before school starts. The last, I don't know how long, you end up having students going to the guidance counselor in the first 2 weeks of school, changing schedules, and it's just chaos. Like the first week of school just is nothing. People are changing in and out of classes. I think it would be wise to consider changing that, whether it's this year or other years, back to the previous thing where the week before school started, you could come in and make adjustments to schedules. So if you needed to take a different class, I have one kid who is trying to graduate early, and so there's certain class adjustments, and it wasn't very clear by Ms. Estes whether those class assignments are there. So I think the board policy needs to be adjusted so we know what the seniors are actually going to need to graduate, because they do start in 2 weeks. And I think at least the seniors should be allowed to come in prior to the first week of school and make sure that their schedule aligns with what that's going to be, because it's going to be a lot of chaos if you have people that think they have all their credits and then they find out halfway through their senior year. We had that when I was in school. It's not ideal. So I think that should be a priority for the board, for the superintendent, and for the high schools to get that all squared away so there's accurate information. Additionally, the lunch thing, I had an issue when that was changed where all of a sudden sophomores needed to wait a quarter before they could go in. I think it should be reconsidered that if a freshman managed to have a good GPA, they shouldn't have to prove it again the first quarter to have open campus. I get the intent is to make it a privilege, but if a freshman has a 3.5 or a 4, and then they still have to wait a quarter to prove they can get a 2.5, I feel like you're not acknowledging the hard work they did freshman year. Finally, the no loitering in cars. I get the intent there is probably vaping or inappropriate behaviors. I mean, there's times where my daughter makes a call for me on lunch to talk and doesn't want to do it in a hallway. So I think you're kind of limiting their space to have like a private phone call by saying you can't be in the car. Also, you're encouraging tardies because you're going to have kids who don't come back onto campus till the last second after lunch just so they don't have to go into the school if they want to be on their phone or talking with their friends. So I think that should be maybe looked into a little bit further. So that covers most of that I had. And then obviously there's a lot of tension, and I just want to remind the whole community that just treat people kindly and respectfully. You know, I mean, I you know, love your enemies, do good to those that hate you. I mean, take a little step back, everyone, just and remember that. I think everyone could use a little bit of a reminder of that. The kids don't need to go into the school year with a negative connotation, and so let's be pre-stripper. So, thank you. And thank you, Chair, for the additional time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Next up, Kathy Nash.
Kathy Nash for the record. I was going to talk about the bills, and I was wondering how often the board superintendent or the tech department go over the software licenses for the district needs. I noticed how much of the invoices for tonight were renewal fees, and was just hoping that somebody's checking those to make sure that we're actively using them every year. There seems to be a lot of overdue bills listed. I calculated almost 20,000 in bills that should have been paid in June. I also noticed on the Wells Fargo statement all the charges were for hotels and travel expenses. These were charged on the food services and transportation department cards. It seems there are an overabundance of travel each month. Is there any way we can have it listed who is doing the travel and for what purposes? And then I had, my final question was about the McKinstry invoice, and there's junior high and high school designs, as well as the high school preliminary design for $61K. I don't remember this expense passing before the board for approval. All of these invoices were dated for 5/31, so again, why didn't the business office submit them to the board in June? Thank you.
With that, I need a motion to close public comments.
I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
Before voting, I would just wondered if there's anyone, I would maybe call to see if there's anyone who didn't sign up.
Okay.
I would-
Is anybody wanting to speak that didn't sign paper or fill out a paper? Okay, I have a first. Now I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of closing? Okay, first by Vice Chair Brown, second by Trustee Hall. All those in favor of closing public comment, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public comment is closed. Next is old business. I need a motion to grant authority to superintendent to develop a facilities use plan.
I will make a motion, or would you like me to bring it to the table, or just make a motion to grant authority to superintendent? to
Just make a
develop-
motion.
Develop a facility use plan.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I have a second. Granting authority to superintendent to develop a facilities use plan. Debate?
And I guess, would that be using some of the examples that we were presented and coming up with a new one?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Hall, so I had a meeting with our admin team this afternoon. The intention would be that I would collaborate with those school leaders to develop a plan that we can just use for each one of their buildings that are specific to what their building needs would be. And it'd be something that's agreed upon by all of them that makes sense for the district, along with the input from other impacted departments, including operations. So that way we had the ability to do that, but that way it keeps it out of the, so that way we have a predictable process for people to utilize if they want to utilize our buildings.
Okay, and how would we track those? Would there be a location where all of them would, central location for keeping those?
Mr. Chairman, and Trustee Hall, the intention that I am taking up on any number of fronts in the district office are to digitize everything that we can and have those forms and process documents available for public consumption on their website.
Okay, that's all I have, I think, that's all I have.
Okay.
I just want to make another comment. Are you still approving or honoring the previous facilities use plans that were already submitted from our?
Yes, those are grandfathered in.
Okay, thank you.
Any other debate? Okay, all those in favor of granting authority to superintendent to develop a facilities use plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next up, I need a motion to bring to the table the second reading of Board Policy 3289 on biological sex.
I make a motion to bring the reading to the second reading. I make a motion to bring the reading of the second reading of Board Policy 3289 on biological sex.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay, I have a second. Second for second reading of Board Policy 3289 on biological sex. Debate.
My concern again is that this particular policy as it's written combines, it's actually addressing a facility policy series 9000 and a student policy series 3000. It puts them all into one. It doesn't do a good job of really doing, addressing some of the issues that the woman, Ms. Ramsey, I think, talked about. I did present at least a template for a 3281, gender identity and sexual orientation, and a facility separated by sex that would fall under a 9605 policy. And again, my concern is this is a little bit too, it's not detailed enough in terms of its description, and that's would be my major concern on this one.
Okay, any other debate? Do you have it?
Here's,
It's online, it's right there.
and here it is.
Right?
Yeah, this is, take that last one.
Okay. All those in favor of the second?
Oh, actually, you don't have a motion yet.
Oh,
You don't have a motion.
okay. Do I have a motion to accept the policy?
Make a motion to accept the policy 3289, board policy on biological sex for the second read.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have first, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second by trustee Reinbold for second reading of board policy 3289 on biological sex. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
I abstain for the reasons I stated.
Okay. One abstention. The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just a technical matter, that as our technology director reminded us that if we don't at least talk into our mics, people that are listening to us online won't be able to hear us. So to the extent that that's for their benefit, it would be appreciated.
Yours isn't working. Okay. Okay, next up, I need a motion to consideration and approval of the preliminary bus route maps and times.
I'll make a motion to consideration approval of preliminary bus routes and route maps and times.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay. Debate?
I am curious, do you have a question on that one? And I'll try to do this so people can hear me. And I don't know if Charity is here.
She's not.
She's not, okay.
I'm pinch hitting.
So, all right, so my question is, in her cover letter of the 14th, she said, if we were to open it up, it says, board consideration approval, routes area maps. Please keep in mind the times on the maps are not correct, unable to have new times till late October. So I'd like to know, explanation why late, and then I'm assuming that parents are provided the revised drop-off and pickup times before school starts, because October's a little late to have the kids know.
They're going to miss the first month.
Kicking them out and running around, but no. I just would like an answer to those questions, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Trustee Hall, my understanding, having spoke with staff, is they like to take the routes for a month and see how they're working, and then after that takes place, then they see if there's places that they could gain greater efficiency with the routes. So that's the main reason, at least from what I've been told, as to why this is preliminary. And as far as I know about the route, about the communication with parents, I believe our building principals can speak to this a bit more directly, but it would be my hope, and I suspect the hope of our building administrators as well, that we'd be able to distribute that at a time when they have a back-to-school night or some sort of parent meeting, so that those things can be communicated before school starts.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I add to that? I spoke to Charity today, and the morning pickup times will be the same, and then the afternoon times, parents should expect an hour later than what is on there. And then she said she'll ride the routes in October, and they'll make any adjustments that need to happen.
Okay. I mean, I knew the morning hour was the same. It was the
Right.
afternoon hour. And will that be the same for like up here at Priest Lake? I think the elementary schools up here might be, I don't know if it's exactly an hour later. Would be something to look into.
That is what she shared with me,
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
Okay. Do I have a motion to consideration approval of preliminary bus route maps and times?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary bus route maps and times.
Okay, I have a first from Trustee Hall.
I have a second.
I have a second from Vice Chair Brown. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. I need a motion to bring to the table consideration and approval of bus disciplinary handbook.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table for consideration and approval of bus disciplinary handbook.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first from Trustee Hall, a second from Vice Chair Brown for consideration and approval of the bus disciplinary handbook. Debate?
I have a question. I know that last year when we were looking at this in terms of, or earlier this year, we were looking at the disciplinary issues. And I wondered if the special ed director has looked at this to make sure that we're make sure that we're in compliance with any special ed considerations. I know that there was kind of an issue with that last time.
Mr. Chairman and Trustee Hall, actually, to my knowledge, that has not yet occurred.
Okay.
But, yeah. But that's a really good point.
Because we ran into that last year in terms of the discipline
Yeah.
and some of those considerations.
Mr. Chairman, if I could yield to Lynn Parker.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I guess my follow-up question is, what kind of timing do we have if we were to say table this for review and then actually some grammar and some commas and things like that that I was noticing missing? Can we do that? Do we have enough time to do that?
Mr. Chairman and Trustee Hall, we know for sure we have to have a meeting on the 25th for the preliminary report from Ide Bailey. So that's a certainty that we're going to have that meeting, as long as the chair agrees with that and puts it on the agenda. But that's the intention, I believe. And I think your point's well taken about speaking to SPED and taking into consideration the comments from Mrs. Parker as well, that it would behoove the board to hold this until a date certain of until August 25th.
Okay. And I would,
Ms. Parker, you said 3, 5, and 30? Okay, thank you.
I think, isn't that in our new, I don't know where Charity got this, but I know that we went back and forth on that, and I'm wondering is if, Mhm.
I want to say we knocked out step 2 last time, and we made step 3 step 2.
I think we were going to try to tighten up what we originally had like 2 years ago, and then when we realized, when Ms. Shaner looked at it after we did that, she said, this is too stringent. So it might behoove revisiting. I have a copy in my documents and it would be on board books. Okay. We usually approve this about the same time, July or August, and we might want to look at what was there and just sort of double check.
Okay, do I have a motion to table this until August 25th?
Yes, I'll make a motion to table this to our next meeting, whether it be regular or special meeting.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, I have a second. All those in favor of tabling consideration and approval of bus disciplinary handbook until August 25th, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification, the motion that was made by the motion maker was to postpone this to the next special meeting.
The next special or
It wasn't a date certain, it was to a special meeting.
well, in case there happens to be
Just for
several.
clarification for the board
Okay,
clerk.
okay. Next up, I need a motion for second reading to amend policy 5900 relating to first aid CPR training for coaches.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table second reading to amend policy 5900 relating to first aid CPR training for coaches.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, I have a second from trustee Vice Chair Brown. Debate?
None. I
Okay.
make a motion to approve the second reading of policy 5900.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second from trustee Barton. All those in favor of approving the second reading to amend policy 5900 relating to first aid CPR training for coaches, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Next is board member reports. Do I have any board members that have a report?
I have a quick one on negotiations.
Okay.
Just to say that we are continuing to negotiate with the certified staff and and that the next meeting is on Monday, August 21st at 5:30 district office. And that's just to briefly just want to let people know.
I have another statement that I'd like to present.
Sure.
And go on record for the board. On August 10th, we received an email from Sina Lackey. She's the Director of Certification and Professional Standards for Idaho State Department of Ed. In the letter, she had stated that Mr. Durst and and a few, it says, recently employed individuals had not completed their background check, which is well past the 5-day grace period. So I just want to put on record that as of this morning, I did talk to Sina. They have received it on Monday, which is well past the time that I was quoted by Mr. Durst 4 weeks ago, where he said that he had submitted it and it was approved for him and Brandy. So I just want to go on the record saying that that was not true. And as of right now, though, it is in process. And so I just want to make clarification that we were unaware of that.
May I ask a follow-up question to trustee Barton? That's okay. Did Ms. Lackey say anything in terms of, is there anything that we should be concerned about as trustees with regards to their processing those at this point in time?
She said at this point in time, they received them this morning, and they are in process. So they were not submitted prior to this, which is well past our 5-day limit that the state gives us as a grace period from employment, day of employment.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, next up, principal reports.
Hi, I'm Lynn Parker, the principal at Priest River Elementary School. And so at our admin meeting today, we talked about the things that we should share with you that people have been calling the district and have some questions about. And so I'd like to talk to you about what our enrollment is right now. And seeing this afternoon kind of shocked me. So I'm going to tell you who my teachers are and what position they're in, but they may have to move based on numbers. Okay. So right now, we have 375 students enrolled, but that means we only have 25 kindergartners, but I'm sure we will get more prior to school starting. We have 68 first graders, which means our first grade classes with 2.5 will be around 27, 28 students. My second grade is around 27 students average, with the combo in the middle, which would have about the same number. Third grade will be about 25 to 26. My fourth grade is where I think I'm going to need to move a teacher. They only have 50 students, which would be 25 students in fourth grade with each classroom if I had 2, and it's going to make it 17, 18 if I make it 3, which is really low when I have those high numbers in first and second grade. So that being said, I called my new teacher that I hired on my way here today and made sure to inform her so she doesn't get just some news from this meeting that I'm moving her without her knowing. So I made sure to call her, and so fourth grade is a little scary. Fifth grade has 2 teachers at 47, so they're going to be great. There'll be about 24 students in a class, and sixth grade is going to be about 26 students, so they're at 52 students in that grade level. So new teachers, I've been working really hard. I want to thank Susie and Peggy and Michelle Wendell and Casey Nelson and let me think, Beth Pettit and Rhonda Klein for attending those with me and helping me to find qualified and the best people for our positions. And they have come in on their own time, and I do really want to commend them for doing that. And so right now, in second grade, we will have, well, I can tell you about kindergarten. We had Michelle McConville move from first grade to kindergarten. So we hired Alexis Riley in first grade, and she had an amazing interview, and I'm very excited to be working with her. In second grade, we were lucky to bring Darlene Ramey over from Idaho Hill. In third grade, I had an interview today, and I interviewed Alicia Francis, and she's coming from the Coeur d'Alene area, and she had a great interview today, and I'm very excited about working with her. And my fourth grade teacher, the one I called, is Amanda Moran, and she did her student teaching with us last year, and so we're very excited to be able to offer her a job. And so I did call and let her know that it could be in first and second, depending on the teachers that are there, basically what Miss Nelson would like to do. Because she's the combo, and that's the one that would split. And then I'm very excited. Like I said, she's going to be great. She did her student teaching in first grade, and she did some observation the year before in fourth grade. So I'm very excited to work with her. And I have fifth grade teacher Topanga Wallace, and she's going to be an ELA teacher in fifth grade. We have Christine Alexander. She's going to be doing ELA and writing in sixth grade. And we have Jordan Munar, and he's going to do math and science. And so I'm very excited about all of the people we were able to find. And we still have some open positions in special ed. I was lucky, and Joanne Walker from the junior high volunteered to come over to PRE, and so we're going to have a tenured person there. And then I have a meeting with Courtney, our director, and 2 potential people that we've already interviewed this year that would fall and fit into those positions if we can talk them into it. So wish us luck. And so we also talked today about back-to-school events at our schools, and I know parents are very concerned about that. We will be having my teachers. I have to meet with my building leadership team because I really work as a team at my site. But what I think I foresee happening is we'll probably do on Friday, September 1st, a meet and greet. And it will be during school hours because in the contract day, teachers only have to come one night in the school year after contract hours. And so we'll do a meet and greet between 2 and 4:15. I think that's when contract hours are going to be. It will change depending on the contract. And then either the first or second week, we will have a back to school night where parents can come in the evening and have our parents, our teachers ready for that. So those are the things that I wanted to share with you. And if you guys have any questions.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susie Lucky for the record. Um, At Idaho Hill Elementary, currently we have 17 kindergartners enrolled, 26 first graders, 28 second graders, 14 third graders, 26 fourth graders, 19 fifth graders, and 21 sixth graders, for a total of 151 students. We hired a new second grade teacher who I think will be a great addition to the team. And we just hired Brittany Smith, who is just transferring from a job she had in the district to our special service resource room teacher. At Priest Lake Elementary, we are planning on roughly about 60 students, and we have reorganized the grade levels. And I say that to you tentatively because this school hasn't opened yet. The secretary comes in another week, and then we'll know for sure who's coming, who's going. But we are planning on a K-1-2 led by Sarah Butler, a 3-4 combination room, and we hired Rachel Gilbert, who's been a teacher and long-term sub in the district, as well as then we'll have a 5th, 6th grade combination classroom with Michelle Barnes. We are currently still looking to hire a music teacher. We had one application offered the position, but they turned it down. So I just received information today from the Music Association, one of the head teachers that works with that. They are looking for us, as well as she has some ideas about how to run a music program with a paraprofessional or community member. She's got a couple choices. So if anybody is very musical and you want to work with K through 6 at our 3 elementary schools, come and see Lynn or I, okay? We're also looking at a technology paraprofessional for Priest Lake Elementary, and then we should be staffed at those schools as of today. This summer, Idaho Hill Elementary received 3 grants that they applied for. Our STEAM room received a $2,300 grant for coding materials for our K-2 students. We received a $3,000 grant to continue with our free book giveaway, and Ann Chamberlain received the arts grant to continue with the dance program. I believe that I'm going to switch gears now to district, to federal programs, and I believe that Brandy gave you a form that is titled Housing Survey late this afternoon.
Yes, she did.
And we're getting ready in all of our school offices district-wide. The students always get a package of papers that they have to fill out. Parents have to fill out and return. So what I wanted to show you tonight is this is the survey that we send out to all of our students. This helps us determine if a student would be eligible under the McKinney-Vento Act. And that, in other terms, is homeless, if they're eligible under homeless. And the reason I wanted the board members to have that is because we read about homelessness all the time in the world. But under the guidelines for school, there's a list here on the bottom of the page that will describe to you what doubled up means or inadequate housing, or these are the categories that we would, a child would be eligible for this act. So what happens with this form is the parent fills this out, or if a student is just living with somebody else's parent, they fill this out, they turn it back into with their packet of papers that have to be returned to the school office, and then the secretary send this form to myself, and Miss Olivia at Idaho Hill. And then because I will be acting as the homeless liaison this year, I will be then contacting this parent, and there's a whole list of questions that I visit with them about and determine if they are eligible. And if they are eligible, then there's a whole list of things they have access to, such as automatic free and reduced lunch, tutoring, hygiene products, all kinds of things like that. So I just wanted you to be aware because we talk about that a lot, and I thought you would be interested in seeing the survey that goes out. And then we actually are required by law to send another survey out at semester time. And then speaking to you about community-wise, with our Priest River Community Foundation literacy team, Megan Mize contacted me. We'll be meeting and getting ready. We'll be offering the Ready for Kindergarten program, the fall, winter, and spring program to all families in West Bonner County District. I know Jessica Brown does it up here at the lake, but then Megan takes care of Priest River Blanchard area. And then we also have our Dolly Parton flyers, Imagination Library for our birth to age 5 for parents to sign up for the free book a month. And I believe we are up to about 160 children that we're serving at this time, and we've graduated out about 55. So that's all I have for tonight.
Hi there, I'm Loretta Glazier, the new principal at the junior high. I'll start with staff or students. I will have so far 92 7th graders and 82 8th graders. I guess the beauty of that is I had both groups of students in 6th grade, so I'm super excited about being able to help them and help facilitate their learning. I know we were to submit handbooks tonight. I am not finished with mine, so I did ask for an extension. I was hired a little bit late, but I met with Angie Goins, the athletic director, because I just wanted to get her input. And I felt that the handbook, it was 42 pages long. It was pretty extensive, and I just felt a lot of parents were probably not going to read all of that. So I wanted to kind of simplify, and so I'm creating an athletic handbook. I'm creating a student handbook that's really in simple terms for them that I want advisory teachers, and I'll speak to that in a minute, that they will go through, and then a parent handbook for pertinent information for them. Because not everything is relevant to students. So that's the reason I almost have it completed, all three, and I'll get it to you as soon as I can. Let's see, I've met several staff members. They've come in just to introduce themselves. I have Laura Hall as my secretary, and she is amazing. She has been so helpful, and I am blessed to have her at the school for sure. Liz Cork has been in multiple times also helping me, also amazing. Matt and I have gotten together. We are most likely going to be sharing a librarian. My library assistant left. My special ed teacher, Lynn, stole her from me, so that's been put out and posted for a new position. I did request for an additional science teacher. And the reason for that is because Brandon Lang, he was a 7th grade math teacher last year. I spoke to both Morgan and Brandon and to see if they would be willing to switch positions so that Brandon now teaches 8th grade math and Morgan would go down to 7th grade. And part of my reason for doing that is because Brandon just got his 612 endorsement to teach algebra. So he will be teaching 8th grade students, the highly qualified, so that they can get a high school credit. And in case there are some 8th grade students who he feels can move up, I mean, he will know them and he knows that content well. So the reason for the science teacher posting is because I'm short, and Brandon is also a electrical engineer or chemical engineer, one of the two. And so I thought, okay, he could do science, but like maybe 2 sections. But the problem with that is he's a relatively new teacher. To do algebra, a couple sections of 8th grade math, and then a couple sections of science, that's a lot. That's overburdening a single teacher, and especially one who's fairly new. So I've put in that request. The 2 exploratory teachers over the summer went and got their endorsement to teach CTE. So that's really exciting. They're going to be doing that this second semester so that they can get together, kind of collaborate. They need to understand the standards and where they're going to be going with that. So the first semester will be their exploratory classes that they generally teach, keyboarding or cooking or whatever they generally do. And then the second semester will be that CTE component. What else? I think that's about it. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, sounds good.
I don't think so.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to your new position.
Sorry, I got a lot tonight. My apologies. First off, staffing, we're almost full. We have one math position that's still open. We offered it, and that person couldn't make the move up from Boise, couldn't convince his wife to make the move from Boise in that short of time. So that math position is still open. We have an ace in the hole, just in case. It would have to be an alternate certification, but the position is still open. Also have a life skills position. We do have a backup plan, just like we did with our life skills students last year. Those 3 could be served through another teacher. We do have a parapro in there all the time. So some new staff. So we're basically full except for those. Some new staff to talk about, because everybody wants to know about new teachers. We have Mrs. Taylor, who's a language arts teacher from Forks, Washington. Nickname is already Twilight, if you like the Twilight series. She's a super dynamic, positive individual. Can also offer some dual credit, pick up that dual credit piece for us as well through NIC. Mr. Monk is an Idaho guy. He was over at the all-girls school, boarding school for behavioral all-girls school. So he knows his way around the classroom, has his master's in instruction, been in the classroom for many years, so he's a strong instructor as well. Have an entirely new math department. All 3 of them will be new once we fill that 3rd position. Forgot about one. Mr. Weimer has a language arts and English certification, but will take the alternative route to fulfill our SPED population. Navy, retiree, so he should be able to handle any issues in the classroom as well. Also has his teaching certification. Mr. Barden comes from the college realm, teaching math. He's a stats guy, so he'll be able to offer us some college credit, statistics, and other courses for us as well. Nicole Anderson comes from the Boise area. I believe it was Columbia High School down in the Nampa area. She's taught for 20-something years, taught dual credit in her past history as well, so she'll be able to offer some dual credit for classes for us as well. We were able to pull up Janice Mitchell from the elementary school to fill a counselor role at the high school. We just got her laptop and got her stuff set up today. For an hour or so, she'll be in Monday to start her work, getting kids scheduled and things like that. We'll get her hit the ground running with that on Monday. And Michelle Larson was our attendance secretary. She's moved over into the Gear Up Near Peer position, so we don't lose that funding, and she'll do a great job with that as well. I think that's all the new staff. I don't think I missed anybody. Projected enrollment, we roll over the kids from last year to this year. We're looking at 97 freshmen, 71 sophomores, 86 juniors, and 55 seniors for a total of 307. Senior class is that last group of that small bubble that's coming through. But again, we're back up to almost 100 freshmen. Had 4 or 5 students and parents walk in today to register and set up appointments for that. So add to that 307. Also had 4 or 5 emails while I was sitting here today from students and parents that they will not be returning. So about 307. As you heard from our new staff, we're looking at adding more dual credit classes. That was one of the reasons that we were in continuous school improvement by the state, is our dual credit opportunities that our seniors participate in. And so we'll hopefully bolster that up with our new staff. Lots of apprenticeship opportunities coming up this year. Those still seem to be moving forward, so we'll be moving forward with that. There is a CTE grant out there that's up to $5 million for each school. We will be getting that application in. I forgot to tell you this today, by the way. November 1st is the second round of that. The first deadline was August 14th, and not knowing where we were going to be with junior high, high school, all that stuff like that, that timeline, we're happy to get that done by November 1st. We're looking at, by the way, that grant is for capital improvements, equipment, curriculum. We are going to try to secure funding for a CTE facility. Basically, if you know what K-Tech is, we're going to try to create a West Bonner Tech, and some of the board members have had discussions with that about me in the past as well. So we're going to hopefully get that grant, get the construction on that building started, and we can start really working with our community on our apprenticeship programs and start getting kids graduating high school with journeyman certificates. So that'd be a kind of a cool addition for us. Also had a meeting with the forestry folks and also another CTE grant. The state's looking at adding forestry into the CTE pot, and which means that we can start expanding our forestry program and start adding that into that CTE structure as well. So that's some awesome things. So that was my summer. So that's been some good stuff. Fall sports are underway. Sad news, we didn't have enough older upperclassmen to hold a varsity football program, so we're in a JV program. We'll have at least one for sure varsity game. Orofino is stuck in the same boat we are. We have, by the way, one senior, 0 juniors, no juniors at all, and the rest of the kids are freshmen, sophomores. From a safety standpoint, you don't put freshmen, sophomores that weigh 100 pounds up against 200-pound kids. And that's been a concern of mine, by the way, for the last 2 years. But we were able to make it work, as this year it just there's no way. Our first home competition is boys soccer this Saturday at home. Yeah, you've been helping out, that's right. So what time, do you remember? 2? 2 o'clock. Girls are unable to play because they didn't have enough kids with practices in, and playing 7 on 11 against the state's best program in girls soccer is probably not the best idea. So yeah, and with the heat and everything, risk of injury in the first game out. Where our boys, how many boys do we have? 17 boys out for soccer, so I think they'll be okay the first game. Yeah. And so lots and lots of girls showed up for volleyball. That number, do you know the exact number, Coach? Okay, so there were lots of them. Yeah, we're maybe going to be asking for a C team coach. We'll see how that washes out. That would be awesome. And I'm trying to think of one more thing. Just as I've been listening to things throughout the summer, I've been a victim of this with some things that are said about me as a principal that were never said when I don't know the numbers for cross country. I haven't had a chance to talk to her. Yeah, sorry. But I know that there's things that have been said and done around the community. And just remember, the golden rule, do unto others as you have done to you. But also don't forget one of the 10 Commandments, that thou shalt not bear false witness. And just keep that in mind when we publish things in the paper and listen to emails and things like that. Because unfortunately, I had someone bear false witness against me. So that's not cool, that's not kosher, and that's a 10 Commandment. So anyway, thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Mr. George, when the application is done for the CTE capital improvements, is it possible to see it?
Oh, you'll see it.
Okay.
Before it gets sent in, it'll go through you.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just want to.
Everything needs board approval.
Okay, especially for that level.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd be really.
We work through superintendent, operations director, and
yeah, because I definitely would like to see it. It's exciting. I mean, I think that's really exciting. And where's the
location? Another reason why the August 14th deadline, there was not time to get that through you guys.
Yeah.
So November gives us
is it the location that's by the old barn?
I'm sorry?
The location for the CTE, is it that near the old barn, or are you going to thinking of a separate?
That's a board, and that's above my pay grade decision.
I mean, so is that being batted, I mean, it has to kind of be batted around into that application, so are we going to see it, is there a work session on it a little earlier, do you think?
we need to get everything together. Mr. Durst and I need to sit down and have conversations, operations director, and then we don't want to give you something that hasn't been thought through.
Yeah, and there is that barn over there that's got lots of stuff in it.
Yeah.
So,
there's
thanks.
some things that have to happen before that can happen.
Okay.
But all the costs of making that happen can be included in the grant.
Oh, okay.
So if it means we have to hire someone to drop a napalm on the barn, after fire season.
Yes, after fire season. There may be historic value to that barn, though.
And I will.
There is historic value to that barn.
When we get to the student handbook, I'll address some of the concerns that were brought up. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hello, my name's Peggy Lutzenheiser. I'm the new curriculum director. I don't have a lot to, can you hear me? No? Let me bring it closer. I'm Peggy Lutzenheiser, the new curriculum director. I don't have a lot to report, but I will tell you what my job this year's mostly. I have 3 main jobs. Curriculum, adopting it, purchasing, helping pick it out, making sure everybody has what they need. Assessment coordinator, which is ISAT, IRI, PSAT, SATs, whatever you can think of, assessments. And then Susie is going to train me on federal programs. And that is unbelievably how much work she's been doing. And she's going to give it to me. But so for a while, she's going to train me for this year and next year probably, because there's a lot that goes with it. And then I will go from there. Right now, I'm actually looking at curriculum adoption. We have a committee that they announced last time, and I will get phone numbers from Carlin and Susan, and I will start calling people and start setting that up. Okay? All right. Any questions? Thank you.
For the record, my name is Melissa Riley. Can you hear me? No? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. For the record, my name is Melissa Riley. I'm the business manager for the Treasurer Report. Good news, we received our state funding. So we just received, $4,351,288. We're still working with the state as to how that is to be used. We're also working right now on a budget revision. So I'm working with the department heads to do more of a bottoms-up budget style. The state also recommended that we do a budget revision once we get our actual attendance figures and we lock down all of our new hires. And that's a pretty standard practice across all of the districts across the state. I also have the bank balances. So for our main checking account, we have $4,345,000. In our student body checking account, we have $163,392. Our AFLAC checking account, we have $34,675. Our insurance buy-down account, we have $262,809. And then our collateralized account, we have $4,216,473. That is pretty much what I have. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Hi, Melissa. Would it be possible to get those numbers in writing? That of those, that you just listed off, and then the state funding, that is equivalent to about 50% of our state funding, as I understand it. Is that correct?
That is my understanding. I had about 3 or 4 calls out to them today to try to lock that down. The way that the state funding works is we give our best estimate of what we're going to receive, and they just kind of give us what they feel we deserve. Again, we're working on a kind of a more robust budget where we're working with the department heads. I did get a little bit of feedback from the state on budget submission number 1. So I'm going to be integrating those changes as well. But yeah, my best understanding is this is roughly about 50%. I'm hoping to hear back from them very soon as to fractionally how that is to be spent. But that's what I have, and I can definitely submit that to you.
Okay, and then I know that after the 28 weeks, there's going to be potentially we may see less next time depending on what things look like. I mean, there could be an adjustment coming forth, but we at least got a good lump sum. So thank you I'm glad that we got that. That was a tight deadline. The other thing I would love to have from you that we got before is that eventually is a treasurer's report so that we have each of those funds identified and the code number, the fund numbers, because same with the bill, you'll hear me when I speak about the bills. Invoices are great, but I really want to see that fund number, the description, the more details, because it was very helpful. I've gotten used to over the last few years understanding, looking at those numbers, looking at identifying which school they go to, which 290 is a food service. So that kind of overview is still very helpful in terms of the bills. And then again, if we can get those bank, that probably treasurer's report would identify these numbers that you just identified in the checking account, I think would as well, probably, in that treasurer's report, if we could get one of those.
Yes, we're working on getting a more formalized report that will become standardized going forward. Yeah, we can definitely work that to you. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Anything else?
No, but
nope. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be, members of the board, I'll be really brief because if I don't, Troy may hit my car. So just really briefly, as you've heard from our staff, things are going, from our building administrators, we're really excited about the staff that we're bringing in for this next school year. I'm excited to see some new faces and appreciate the return of others as well. Excited about the CTE program that we're going to be trying to get moving more. The dual credit program is going to be great for our students. I can report that we're going to be working on getting our CARES program and having it become an alternative school and being able to utilize the annex so we can get funded for an alternative school, which hasn't been happening. I think that'll be beneficial for our district from both a financial standpoint and from an academic achievement standpoint. To that end, I do think it's important for us to talk about academic achievement and try to make that a focal point of these board meetings. We're here to educate kids, and I'm really excited about the addition of Peggy to our team to be able to help focus on the assessment and the curriculum and the instruction components of our district so that we can get some real work there and be able to kind of focus on what will make our students better and improve our instructions for our students' benefit as well. I would just note, and I appreciate the point made by Trustee Barton, I just want to assure the board that I completed my component of getting the fingerprints done within 2 days of being hired. I did what I did. I gave it back to the staff. And when I asked last week why I hadn't heard back about it, Tracy looked into it and found out that the state had never received them. That caught me off guard as much as anybody else because I had already completed everything that I thought needed to be completed. So Tracy then expedited that process and helped me get those done again. And so hopefully this time, it sounds like they were received this time and will be done quickly. So I just want to make sure the board's aware that to the extent that I did what I was supposed to do in that respect, I did so. I just finally say that, we are, the district's going through a lot of changes right now, as we're all aware, and our staff at the central office has been working late nights almost every single night. I don't think there's a day that we have the staff leave before 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and that's just a commitment to what's doing right. Tracy Arusha has been a phenomenal person in our HR position. She is just really killing it. She's had a lot of applications to receive and just all the work that comes on with onboarding new staff. She's just done a tremendous job, and I want to make sure that we show her the appreciation because she's just done, like I said, just a really, really great job, and I'm appreciative of what she's done for us. And we want to also finally say that On August 25th, we're going to be hosting a community movie night at the high school immediately after the board meeting is done. I am paying for everything out of pocket myself, so there's no district funds will be expended. I am paying for all the concessions and all the things related to that so we can have an opportunity for our community to come together and enjoy some time together. And we'll be taking a donation for that to support PRYC, who hopefully, pending board approval here in a few minutes, will be able to offer a 5th-day program for our elementary students down in the Priest River in the Idaho Hill area. So we have got lots of stuff going on. We've been making a lot of progress, and I appreciate all the staff and others who've been able to help and get us that done.
Thank you. Question. What are the movies for movie night? You
We're
can't
gonna
just
watch-
say, is there popcorn? I mean, you just
There
can't.
will be popcorn, and my wife is bringing up our commercial-grade cotton candy machine.
know.
So if anyone wants to help work on the cotton candy machine, it takes to get as much as we're going to need, you'll probably need a day in advance to start it because you can't get it done that fast. So anybody who wants to get gross and sticky and wants to help with that, please let me know, and my wife will. Haley just volunteered. I want the record to reflect that Haley Scott just volunteered to be. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're gonna be out on the stands at the high school, and I have a 30-foot screen that I just purchased. That's gonna be pretty sweet, and yeah, it'll be pretty cool. And the movie, to answer the question, is my favorite movie of all time, which is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the real version with Gene Wilder. And I have my Willy Wonka costume that I purchased. My little guys are gonna be Oompa Loompas, and my wife is gonna be Violet Beauregard as a blueberry. So. We're super excited about that and hopeful to have a lot of people there so we can enjoy some time together as a community.
And if I can tag off of that, we had actually a lot of people in the community came forth and said, we're going to do a raffle. How are we going to move forward with this? Again, if the board approves it tonight for this group with the PRE, so they came forth, and now we have a huge basket filled with tickets to the Roxy, candy galore, popcorn, old popcorn containers, cookies, sodas, all kinds of wonderful things. And then the owners of Roxy gave us a whole bunch of additional tickets to use as raffles as well. They were really supportive in all of this. So.
Awesome.
Political reasons.
Okay. I need a motion to bring to the table a consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to bring the consent agenda to the table.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second from Vice Chair Brown. Discussion?
I do have some questions on the bills, and I know that some of them are in line with what Ms. Nash identified. Let me look at the list. I guess, I mean, one of the questions is, I did also notice that there were quite a few that were late, and I'm not quite sure. I guess I'm curious. I mean, glad that they're hopefully get paid once we approve them. I guess I'm wondering if there's any, just to correct it going forward. I hopefully will correct that issue going forward and get, why they might have been late, but more importantly is not ensuring that we're not in that boat in the future is one question I've got, and then I do have a couple of specific ones.
So I can speak to that a little bit, and I don't know if Kendra wants to say anything as our accounts payable person, but so part of the issue is that the staff is finding bills that were stashed that weren't paid. And so to the extent that you look at the bills, you'll see several of them that have been more than a couple months old. And so as we find bills, we add them to the agenda for approval. I think we have got a process in place right now where we're not getting behind on anything that's going forward. And that is something that we're going to be working on. To the point you had made prior, Trustee Hall, related to what bills are for, that's part of the bottom-up budgeting process we're working on, so that those business units, whether they be a school or the operations division or whatever else, those bills going forward will start to be compartmentalized under their business unit. So that way you'll know we have these particular bills go to, let's say, for example, operations, and this is the current budget we have for operations, and this is how it's going to be deducted from it. So that way there's much more transparency for not just the board, but for the public as well. But that takes a lot of time to get to that point, and we're, at this point, we're just trying to pay everything down that we can, and make sure that if something is due, that we get it paid for.
Okay. The other question, a couple of questions. I think I noticed the one for the travel under food service, and then I looked back at a bill, kind of the bills last year, because I do a cross-check on those, and it looked like maybe Terry Johnson has an annual conference that she goes to.
Yeah, my understanding, and it comes to the credit cards, my understanding is one of the dilemmas we have is in athletics, we don't have a lot of options when it comes to how we pay for things like travel. And so we max out credit cards to pay for those things because, you don't know you're going to make districts or state until you've made districts or state. And there's not a lot of time to prepare for that. And that's one of the reasons we want to have some of those budgeting practices in place so the money can be, pre-approved and ready to roll so that we don't have to leverage our credit cards to get those done. And that's the goal. I do know that Terry does have some conferences that she goes to. In fact, she was just at one last week. But I think it's larger. The larger issue is that oftentimes our athletics or co-curricular activities get in a place where they don't have any other options, and the fastest way to get liquidity for funds is through the credit card. And we need to stop that. Mr. George may have. Sure, if the board allows.
Yes, so normal practice for athletics would be to create a purchase order, get that approved. Last school year, everything was approved at monthly board meetings. So in order for us for the high school to secure a hotel room for a state event that was a week later and pay for those, that the process for board approval would have been too late and the kids wouldn't be able to go to state. And so that was some of that. We also had an issue with the credit card where the credit card was declined and a coach had to pay for it out of pocket and get reimbursed. So we'd prefer not to use credit cards as a practice for high school athletic events. But last year that had to become part of the protocol. And we had to use a credit card to pay for officials because it was taking too long to get money deposited into the Dragonfly, which is the how to pay officials account through board action.
So to clarify, that one that's for, say, what was it called? The hotel down in Boise, was that actually for athletics or was that actually for food service?
Trustee Hall, I don't have that level of familiarity with the budget to say.
Do you know the date?
It would have been, let me see, I'm trying to look at this bill right now. Well, it says food service and transportation, and I'm guessing it was Hotel 43. The date was 6/26. So that would have been maybe, yeah. So I know it's food service. I'm just double checking to make sure it was food service, not athletics or whatever. Yeah. Just making sure that it was what it was stated. The other one, the big one, I think people have a question on. I have some more knowledge of it, but I would, if you can explain the McKinstry one for $61,000. I mean, I know I did a little bit more information on it, but best probably for you to share that.
So, we have some documentation about that. There's McKinstry has done a lot of work for us around design work for our buildings, and our clerk she's done some more digging on that. She may be able to provide some more background.
Okay, so the McKinstry charge for the $61,000 $6,564 that was invoiced on 5/31/2023. I called McKinstry, we emailed back and forth a little bit, and because we actually have a balance due to them of $73,371. So I reached out to find out the breakdown on that. And a couple things are for service on boilers and whatnot. But then there is, sorry, the $11,000 that is there is left over from the elementary school, that first,
Right, the 180.
whatever it was, that 180 or whatever. So they had billed for 94% and then realized that the last 6% they hadn't charged us for. And so they sent an invoice for that. And then there is another charge for, well, the $61,564. And I am being told by Casey at McKinstry that he agreed to assist Ken with some rough order of magnitude pricing analysis for providing modifications to the middle school at its current location, as well as constructing a new middle school at the high school location. This work was not in our contract, but was completed per Ken's request. So,
Excuse me, so you're saying there was plan designs made to create a junior high at the high school?
Yes, it looks that way. They sent me this morning, I haven't really been able to dig through it, but they sent me plan designs, and they did a cost analysis for additions and modernizations at the junior high. So that was one, and then that was their price they put on that was $16,608,438. But then they also did a bid for new construction of the junior high on high school grounds for $25,636,200.
I'm sorry, did you say 25 million?
I did.
That's for new construction.
That's for new construction.
That's new construction.
It's
Okay,
cost.
and
It's not no, it's not a bill. It is,
no, I understand that. I was
they
just trying to-
billed us the $61,564 to put together these different options for the West Bonner Middle School.
Yeah.
No.
Please.
So is their signature on there? Who approved to have somebody create plans that the board never talked about?
Well, the original was done in 2021. It looks like 10/22/2021. And that was previous chair, Sandra, that signed that one. Yep.
And that would have, Brandy, that one's for the cafeteria and that was for the Priest
Correct.
River Elementary
Correct.
School.
That's the original, it just says Addendum 1, West Bonner School District. It was the
Now, that-
200 and, $220,668. There was like an original 25,000 and then the 195,986. And
And I
then,
think the 25,000 would have been the feasibility study that
Okay.
we talked about last
okay.
time.
And then there is a second amendment for $61,564 that was signed. Sorry, one second. On December 14th, 2022 by Margaret Hall. And then McKinstry signed it on 1/5/2023. Warren Tastad.
So we would need to go back, because I think it's part of that facilities discussion.
Okay.
I think it must have been presented back then to, because I would have not assigned it without, but I think it was for the whole package. What day, it was signed what day, December?
December 14th, 2022.
So it would have been after a board meeting, and I can look online, but I think we went through it and looked at it, but we wasn't. I know you're laughing at that, but I need to go back and look at it, because I wouldn't have signed it unless it had been a board approved, unless it was in a meeting. I would not have signed it. So but I think it must have been in that whole package that Ken talked about, and it was a piece of it, because I think it also had to do with, part of that has to do with the security, school entry and security floor plan upgrades.
Yeah.
Is part of that. And I think there was, the facilities committee, I think it was presented to you guys, and then Ken, or Keith, I think you came back and made the presentation for us to approve a certain package with the ESSER money. So
The package that we approved was the entryway of for the high school, a new entryway, the new roof on the high school, and something else, but I don't remember us talking about a junior high.
No, and I think that when I look back through the notes, or the emails that Brandy, the communications that Brandy had back and forth, the original was for what you just listed, the entryway, the HVAC, and the roof.
Right.
That was, and I think they were adding on, that was the original package, as a sort of courtesy, it sounds like, through the emails, they went ahead and added that additional section. And I had nothing to do with that piece. And the only thing I can think of is it came out of what Jackie was talking about, of looking at the possibility of moving the junior high group to the high school, and people talking about building, having one campus. But if you look at the notes, so I think that first one that I signed was after the meeting where we approved the possible things that we were going to move forward with, and the idea that the ESSER money was going to be able to come in and pay for those improvements.
Right, for the improvements,
For the
correct.
improvements.
And then the engineering cost, the McKinstry portion of it, was the engineering cost for the entryway, and then for the roof structure, for the re-roofing, that had to do the engineering analysis before they worked on the roof. And that was it. But I did see an email in here where Ken gave them a verbal okay. I can't find the email now.
And that's what I'm looking for in the packet.
It
'Cause-
said it wasn't part of the original scope, but Ken gave them the approval to go ahead anyway.
And I don't think, the way I looked at it, it looks like, it was an email that's, if you're looking at the full packet PDF, it would have been on 404. Actually, it would be on page 41. But it says, yes, all design, now I've lost it. Yes, all design documents per our contract were completed, delivered, and the package presented to the school board on 3/23/2022. The full contract was not invoiced initially, as we agreed to assist Ken with some rough order of magnitude price analysis for providing modifications to the middle school as its current location, as well as constructing a new middle school at the high school location. This work was not in our contract, but was completed per Ken's request. After assisting with this pricing effort, our focus was shifted to the use of ESSER funds for roofing, HVAC controls, and a secure entry at the high school.
Okay.
And that's, with this new focus, the 6% invoice for our previous effort dropped off the radar. Hopefully this information helps. So I don't know if Ken got direction from Jackie, because I know there was a lot of ideas she was batting around, and maybe that was one thing she directed Ken to go do when he directed McKinstry.
Okay, so the holdback was for the completion of the drawings for the Peace River Elementary, and it sounds like they threw in the design feasibility on that. The 61,000 is for the engineering on the roof, the HVAC, and the breezeway.
Right, which we did approve, and I think if we went
Yes.
back to the December meeting, or then most likely I would have signed it the day that, the date that it was signed probably was the date of our meeting.
It coincides with the meeting.
December 14th.
Yeah, I could look double check, but that, so I think the 61,000 was just for what you identified. I don't think they added anything for that other, I'm not seeing that
No,
they added
I don't.
anything
I
for
don't
that
think
other.
so either.
We had a special board meeting on the 14th.
So, and that was, I think, trying to see if there's any other bills, looking at. Those were the only ones that I wanted clarification on, and sort of also have the public have clarification on.
And I apologize, Brandy, I had started to email and then apparently I didn't hit send, so I have a couple questions. It sounds like reading this letter from Charity that she's been getting us back some money. So kudos to her for that. Parts that we no longer need are for buses that we don't even have. So that's pretty significant. Then I had a question here. What are all of these suspended charges, and I understand it's prior to you coming on board, all for 5/30/23, and they're all for the water bill. We had given board direction to the prior business manager, and you guys correct me where I'm wrong, but for anything that we considered keeping the lights on and doors open, she didn't need to wait until we actually had a board meeting, because we understood they fell kind of in between, as like what Mr. George was talking about. So we gave her authorization to pay those things. But if I'm understanding this correctly, all the water bills that are attached to this were suspended by Shauna on 5/30.
Yeah, Kendra talked to the gal at the city, so she could answer more to that. But we did also receive
You have more red slips.
notices for all of the schools that the water will be shut off tomorrow, $35 charges on each of them.
And that was the reason we gave her carte blanche to do that, so that we wouldn't have this happen again.
Yes. So Kendra can tell you what she talked to the city about here.
Okay, so just to clarify, probably why it was a suspension is when I talked to the city and said, I know I got to make this payment in the morning, the bill, we're going to have approval. Now I know that one I can just pay immediately. Thank you for that. I called the city to make sure that, I'll be down there with checks first thing in the morning, and was told that because of our past history with the city, we are on a suspension and I cannot pay them with one of our checks out of our account until after November of this year. Previously, it has been paid with our credit cards, and unfortunately, how we were talking earlier, there's several different credit cards and they all have different limits. They were having to make several different payments with maxing out all these different cards to make the payments. I don't want to be playing that game here, try this for $5 kind of a deal. So I asked her if I could go to the bank and grab a cashier's check, that they would accept that. So they will. So I can go through the normal process of the POs, of the paying it, and then produce the check that I will take to the bank, turn it in for a cashier's check, and have that paid first thing in the morning. So going forward until November, that's how we will do it. We'll pay them immediately once we receive the bills, by going to the bank, receiving a cashier's check, and taking that to the city. And starting in December, then we can pay normally.
And I guess I've got one follow-up question for you. Have we cleared up the signatures on the check? So we now have 2 signatures on the checks, and who are they now, for sure? For clarification, just so we recap.
At the moment, it's going to, trying to see what I had this morning. Keith and Brandon.
Okay. So it should be, eventually it will be the treasurer, right? It usually is the chair and the treasurer.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we've been working with Sarah, who is in charge of large business accounts, all week with back and forth paperwork.
Okay, so that hopefully will be cleared up in the next couple of weeks, that clarification. Okay. And, okay, so thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, I had another one on LifeMap. I'm assuming this is our third-party vendor for all the ancillary benefits?
Sorry, insurance company, life insurance company.
Okay. So we have a lot of the names on here that are no longer staff members. So I'm assuming that that'll get rectified down the road, and then we'll get payment back for those.
Yeah, Tracy's going through that list right now.
Okay.
She's working with the department heads and with the building administrators to identify staff that are no longer with them and removing them from the list. And that goes, the same thing's true for what our work with tailors as well for our health insurance program.
So I would caution, it sounds like those names, I'm looking on the information that I've received, and if there are people's names and it's related to any kind of, I don't know, I'd be careful, I would make sure that we're not divulging privacy issues on that, and I would caution Vice Chair Brown not to share those very widely if they've got people's names on them.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, so I just want to make sure.
Okay, I guess so then just for clarification, and the board can all speak in, we did give full authorization for any bills that are for keeping the lights on, keeping the water going, the trash picked up. What else am I thinking missing up? Propane. Stuff that are vital. You don't need to wait for a board meeting. You do need to present them to us, but you just need to pay them, please. I don't like the red tickets.
And it might behoove, because I think there's concern of, it might make sense for the next time for a list of potential, a list brought before the board of potential entities that are, we, instead of just speaking them out, have a list of saying who would be the vital ones to pay, and we approve it as a board. Because I think part of the reason is that what we might consider as vital, someone else might not consider as vital. So I think it might behoove having that list of vendors who we think are vital, so that we approve those can be paid up front. I think it's the gray area that makes it wishy-washy for everyone and a little risky.
Yeah. I did have one last question. Why are we paying for a subscription to a free magazine?
It's because we also have decided you're talking about Beacon. We have used it, there was that conversation about the record, a location for putting in. The Beacon cannot be our newspaper of record, but we recognize, because of the subscription, but we did recognize during our annual meeting that the Beacon was everyone was reading it, and our meetings notices go in there so that people are aware of our meeting notices. And I think that's, Mr. Durst, that maybe is that your understanding? But that was my understanding. We had that discussion a while ago, and I think if we look at our annual meeting notes, we may have done the same thing we did it the year before. I think we did not change it this last time, and that's why we had continued using the beacon.
And that could be, I think that just if you look at the statutory requirement around posting of things in the newspaper of record, there's some conditions around circulation for that. And so, although I can't speak specifically to this particular bill, but certainly whatever the bill thinks is appropriate, we'll go with.
I mean, I think the thought is that people do read the beacon, it's free, and that is a way to get our information out on the.
I kind of thought the discussion was that our hands are tied, we have to take the Bonner B, no matter how much they suck.
Yeah.
But we did acknowledge that the beacon did, so I think we did authorize.
We did, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't remember.
Yeah.
All right. Further discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second that.
I have a second from Vice Chair Brown. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 The consent agenda is passed. Okay. New business. I need a motion for consideration and approval for request for bids for mental health services.
I'll make a motion to approve, but I guess I would say bring to the table consideration and approval
Yeah,
for
that's what I
request
meant.
for bids for mental health service, because I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So,
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first and a second to bring to the table for consideration and approval for request for bids for mental health services. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just to kind of brief the board. So I've heard in my town halls, specifically the town hall I had down at Idaho Hill, a lot of concerns from community members around having access to mental health care for our elementary students in particular. And while we think we're very close to being able to have a elementary counselor, that isn't a certainty. And so just to give the district a little bit of an alternative, if that position doesn't get filled, then what we're asking for is the authority to go out for bid to be able to hire someone on a contractual basis to provide mental health services to our school district, to supplement that which would be lacking from the elementary school not having a counselor. So that's the strategy there. Just want to make sure, and it would be our intention that if that position is filled, that we would remove the request for bid, and then we wouldn't go any further with that.
okay.
Okay.
So I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve going out for a request for bids for mental health services.
Okay, I have a first for approval for a request for bids for mental health services. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a second from Vice Chair Brown. All those in favor of approval for request for bids for mental health services, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. I need a motion to bring to the table for consideration and approval of administrative salary schedule.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table the consideration and approval of the salary schedule, administrative salary schedule, correction.
We have a first.
I'll second that.
I have a second from Vice Chair Brown for consideration and approval of administrative salary schedule. Debate?
I guess I would like to know the dollar amount if we go with option 2, the 1,200 flat increase, which is what has been in the last couple of years. What are we looking at in terms of total dollar amount in general per C?
It'd be, well, it would be 4,800 times 0.32, or times 1.32 would be the total, because you've got 4 administrators who this would be applying to, because it wouldn't apply to me. No, 5, sorry. It'd be 6,000 times 1.32. Although, no. Sorry, I don't want to confuse everybody. I'm sorry. I remember why I only said 4, because the special education director, this doesn't apply to, because she's remote, and you'll notice that that didn't see, we've differentiated between the local and the remote on that piece, and so she wouldn't see a raise from this. So she would remain the same where she's currently at. So it'd be the 4,800 times 1.32 roughly would be the total impact,
Okay.
which you get to that times 4 times 1,200 times that number. That's how the math works.
So.
And I can't download anything on my phone, so I can't tell you. I don't have a calculator on here.
So it looks like it's about roughly $6,400 is
Yeah,
what
that
I'm
sounds about
coming up
right.
to, roughly, without, if I just did 1 point somewhere in
Yeah.
there. Okay. And I know that this was originally, I'm going to propose option 2, the 1,200 flat increase, because we have not finished negotiations, and I do not want to, I know that the 1,200 was kind of factored into the original budget, proposed budget, after the levy didn't pass. I mean, everybody's working really hard, but I also want to cut, I don't, we need to finish negotiations with the certified staff. So I'm trying to be conservative on that increase, but recognizing that maybe if we go out for a levy next year, we can adjust that. But right now, that would be my motion, is to approve the salary schedule with a 1,200 flat increase at this point in time.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I have a question.
Okay.
So we're looking at,
That's option 1. Do option 2?
okay.
And that ends up being slightly higher, the 2.5% versus the 1,200. And here's, if you want to see it better.
Thank you.
Is,
Because that's blurry.
yeah, it is blue. So there's the one with the 2,500. And this would, I mean, I recognize this is, not going to address the cost of living increase at all, but at least I want to recognize the hard work that the administrators have done and the administrative team has done and undertaken over the last year.
And I just want to point out for the boards, to help the board, you'll notice that we've differentiated between different positions. Before there was some truncation.
Yeah.
We've separated those out to provide more clarity, so that way it was easier for potential applicants as well as the public to know who was getting paid how much depending upon what position we had. So if we have a change in staffing later, that way it's pretty clear.
So what does this affect if we wait? What does this affect if we wait until negotiations are done, completed?
So there's no impact because the administrators aren't a part of the bargaining unit. So their contracts are separate from those. And it seems to me, I'm not caught up in this necessarily. Our administrators have been working the last 3 days on contract without a contract. So to the extent that they're not tied to what happens with negotiations, I think it makes sense to get their salary schedule approved so that Tracy can get the contracts printed up and they can get them signed as quickly as we can.
Okay, that's what I was trying to.
Yeah.
Last year. So if there are no more questions, I'll make a motion for official motion.
Okay.
There's a motion on the floor. You need a second,
Okay.
Keith.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to accept option 2. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second from Trustee Barton. All those in favor of approving administrator's salary schedule, option 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the salary schedule is adopted. I need a motion to bring to the table consideration and approval of longevity stipend plan.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table consideration and approval of the longevity stipend plan.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second from Vice Chair Brown. Debate?
This is, and Mr. Durst can go ahead, this is basically what we have before. The only caveat I would say is that I know negotiations isn't completely done, but as we've talked through negotiations, this seemed to be, maintaining the same longevity stipend has been acceptable. So I would make a motion to approve it. The one difference, again, the negotiations agreement will trump our policies, that has priority. But this one is looking at the longevity stipends broken into quarters, I think it was, which does make sense.
Okay.
So I think.
So the motion on the floor is to accept the longevity stipend as written pending salary negotiation, is that correct?
I would approve it as is, and if we have to amend it, we do so after negotiations. I would go ahead and approve it as is, and if it
Okay.
has to, so that it's settled, but if we have to come back and amend it, we do so.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to accept the longevity stipend as is. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second from Trustee Barton. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the longevity stipend is adopted. I need a motion for consideration and approval of PRYC use of PRE for Friday student care.
I'll make a motion for the facilities, consideration and approval of the PRYC use of PRE for Friday student care. And I wondered, thanks, if Brandy could open the document up.
I second that.
We have a second for consideration and approval of PRYC use of PRE for Friday student care. Debate?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask Liz Holbrook and possibly, if she wants, Lynn Parker, to the extent she wants to provide input from the school's perspective on what this is and what the objective is, and kind of provide some context so the board can make a more informed decision. Yeah, there's nothing there.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Michelle Larson. This is Liz Holbrook, obviously. We are here on behalf of Priest River Youth Connections, a local organization dedicated to supporting the youth of West Bonner County. Our mission is to help our students reach their goals and enhance their well-being through scholarships, music, activities, and programs. We are excited to introduce our 5th day program, which aims to provide a safe and engaging environment for children on Fridays. This program will offer activities such as music, arts, sports, and more, contributing to the mental, creative, physical, and social development of the students. To successfully run this program, we are here to kindly request the permission to use the facilities at Priest River Elementary. We've chosen PRE due to its reputation and suitability to our program's needs. The facilities would greatly contribute to the success of our initiative and benefit the community. In addition, we are seeking volunteers to help facilitate this program. Without community support, we will be unable to launch, and we believe that involving dedicated individuals from the community will create a nurturing and inspiring environment for our children. We also wanted to share that we have recently received our tax exemption status, and as we work towards securing funding, our goal is to provide paid positions for anyone interested, including classified staff. We aim to create sustainable employment opportunities within our community while fulfilling our mission. Thank you for considering our request, and we appreciate your commitment to the well-being of our youth, of the community, and we look forward to opportunities to collaborate and move forward and positive for the kids that we serve.
Okay, so there's probably concern about how it's going to impact PRE and our programs that we're using on campus. And so we have 2 classrooms that aren't being used right now, which could be used for this program. So it would have no impact on any teachers in their classrooms, which is important. And we have our gymnasium, which is amazing. And then we also have a computer lab. One computer lab is Peggy's office, so we cannot use that, but we can use our other computer lab, and that would be good technology and things for our students that are involved in that program to be used.
When we started talking about 4-day, and as an elementary school principal, and knowing students have no place to go on Fridays and parents it really needed, my initial instinct was to apply for grants and to do some things, but then at that time Jackie told me that Liz had already been thinking about that, and so that I didn't need to, I was thinking 21st century grant, an after-school grant, something that we could do to implement at our school so we could support our students, because that's so important to me. So this way we can have a joint effort to meet those needs of our students and our community.
So, question, I mean, it sounds really great, and Liz, I know you've worked really hard on this. What about, I guess, the use of the food? I mean, are these kids going to, is there going to be, does the cafeteria need to be used as well?
No, to start, because we don't know what our funds are going to be, we're just going to have the parents offer or bring sack lunches, and then we're hoping to get donations for snacks twice a day.
Okay.
So, and then one of the classrooms, Lynn was talking and Brandon about possibly just getting a refrigerator donated and leaving it in that classroom. So we have a cafeteria set up in there.
And just in terms of, I know our maintenance staff is still somewhat tight, so are we able, will that be?
That's what we're hoping, is that the funding that we're getting, the donations and the grants that Liz has already applied for would support that part of the program.
That part, okay.
As of right now, I promised that I would be donating my time for a couple of months until the program gets off the ground.
Okay. All right, and then do you have a sense how many kids at this point?
How many kids? Is that what you said? Well, go ahead.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I, just so you know, I had a little background. It's one of the things I did to get my master's in administration was I created an after-school program at the district that I was in that there was not one. And so 100 students at first. And actually, Liz and I talked about it, and is there a need? We're going to do a questionnaire and see, is there a need for it? And then that would be the decision maker on what we do.
And I would share too, just for the board's edification, we did have a meeting about this earlier this week, and I included Officer Davis in that conversation as well, and I previously spoke with the chief, and they're willing and able to do some drive-bys and stops in and just kind of check in with the kids on throughout the day on Friday, so that way parents have some assurance that they're safe, that their kids are going to be safe in that environment, and also that we keep that taken care of. So.
And age limit is basically up, what age limit?
Yeah, just K through 6.
Okay. Okay, and I'm not ready to volunteer time yet, but I'll keep an eye, because we also have to see what we might want to do up here at Priest Lake. So that would be where because it's closer, as I always say, it's closer to Sandpoint from Priest River than it is to basically up here. So we need to see we need to have that conversation for up here. And see how we, what the public, I was hoping to have, maybe help sort of listen to or be part of a meeting up here before, but negotiations has taken a bunch of time, so hopefully we can do that once we get started.
Yeah,
and
maybe our getting this one off the ground would be helpful for the one up here too.
Yeah, and there may be things like somebody mentioned, we've got the experimental forest, we've got some other things, there's the 4-H program connected with the cooperative extension. There may be things that we can dovetail on. It's just, again, what's the community, what I want to hear is what does the community want to do up here?
Well,
And that's what I need to know.
A group of us attended STEM training in Coeur d'Alene this summer, and there is a grant that we're going to try to write for this program. Michelle Wendell is trying to be the spearhead for that, and so Michelle Barnes went, Rachel Davis went, and Casey Nelson and myself, and so we have some great ideas and things to share for STEM at PRE.
And that would be great. I mean, hopefully we can, the communities can work together. It's not that, don't want to bus people down there, but it's a long way. So and it may not be a huge group, so it may be, just need to figure out what people want to do up here.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Unless,
I have a motion to approve the PRYC use of PRE for Friday student care. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from trustee Barton. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And thank you for all the work you put together with that.
Next, I need a motion to bring to the floor consideration and approval of change to 2023, 2024.
You jumped.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You jumped one.
I checked.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table consideration approval of facility use agreement for PRYS.
I'll second that.
Okay.
So,
I have a motion to bring to the table.
I'll
Do I have
second
a
that.
second? You have a second, Carlin? I have a second from trustee Barton. Debate?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Just as a point of consideration for the board, we obviously support the approval of all of these from the staff side, but we'd like them to be conditioned upon conditioned upon the completion of the facilities use plan, which we're going to try to get pushed out pretty fast, but that way they're underneath that new plan that's going to be developed. That would be the only request. That if, to the extent the board is supportive of doing that, that the motion would speak to that be a part of the plan that's being developed.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. And that will go with the PRYC use and PRE for Friday student care as well. Okay.
just to clarify, I guess that would be the fee structure and all of that?
And yeah, so one of the things that the administrators mentioned to me that they want to make sure is included is there's some sort of, and Peggy was the one that brought this one up, was to say, hey, we need to make sure we have some sort of cleaning deposit in place because sometimes the facilities aren't left in the best condition. I think what we'd like to do is have any kind of, one of the other things we're looking at doing is making sure that if there's any fees that are collected, that those, for the use of the buildings, that those, we'd like to have them retained with the building that they were used for, so they kind of work as a fundraiser for that specific school, so they can put it back into their programs. But the idea just being that if we have those, once that's approved, then that will govern those use agreements going forward.
Okay, so I guess clarification on the one that's before us right now, the Priest River Youth Sports. They don't seem to start until September 5th, but can we go conditionally approve them that we can move them forward and then once, yeah, because this one's outdoors.
That's Priest River Sports. We take our garbage with ourselves. We supply everything. This is just for the fields. We're not even in the school. We bring our own porta potties. We do everything. So I don't see why there would have to be a change in that, since we're not using technically the building, just the fields.
No, yeah, that's
I know, I'm
understood.
just saying, putting
Yeah.
this out there that this one's just for the field, so
Correct.
we shouldn't have to be charged to use the facility if we're not going in the building. That's all I was trying to say.
Correct, but that will be handled with the facilities use agreement.
I know,
Okay,
I was,
so it'll be I understand you're going to be outside.
right,
Okay, but that's still considered facilities. The only thing with facilities use agreement is because this is not uncommon for school districts to have something like
I
this.
get that. I was just stating, could it be something different since we're not going to be inside of the fields?
Yeah,
Like,
and
or
I would
inside of the
just
school.
to lay the concerns, Danielle. I
Do you
think,
get what I'm saying?
yeah, just to lay your concerns. I think it's not our goal to try to. We just want to make sure that we have the things in place so that's predictable. So that way we treat all potential users equally, depending upon their use. And so I know there is a desire that if we talked about, like we talked about in our meeting, admin meeting today, if they're benefiting our students, our youth, that's different than if it's an adult group that's trying to utilize our facilities. And so I think that we just want to make sure we have those laid out so that way it's clear
Right.
as to what we're trying to do. So I understand what you're saying, but
It's just with the soccer field, like
No, I
we're
get it, yeah.
outside. It would be different if we were inside.
I get
For
it, I understand.
basketball, it's
And
completely
we're going to differentiate between outside use only and inside use
Okay.
only, and yeah.
That was my only concern.
Yep, absolutely.
And I guess what I'm wanting to do is, because I'm looking at these different use agreements that we have, and we want to make sure that we're consistent, I see this, this one may be starting on September 5th, it's going through October 7th, but a couple of the others are starting immediately. So I guess in terms of approving, don't want to hold things up because there's cheer practice and things like that. I think it would be that then these use agreements would be updated once we got the new one in.
That makes sense, yes.
So.
Okay. All right.
So I would make a motion to approve the facility use agreement for the PRYS, sort of conditionally or with the note that this will be updated once we get the actual updated facility use plan in place.
I have a motion to accept. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second from Trustee Barton. All those in favor of the consideration and approval of facilities use agreement for PRYS, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table consideration approval of change to 2023-2024 school year calendar.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second from Trustee Barton. Debate?
Mr. Chairman, just as a bit of background, because I'm sure this is going to be, this would be a minor change, and it would be related to winter break. The issue we have is that we've got concern from some classified staff that because our classified staff is not on a 4-day work week, they're on a 5-day work week, we don't currently leave for winter break until the 22nd of December. And if anyone's trying to get anywhere else for Christmas, that's going to make doing that very, very difficult. The flights are going to be very expensive. It's going to make hard for travel. And it's also going to be hard for families that celebrate Christmas to be able to do so with any degree of festivity because they're going to be in school the whole time. And I have a lot of concerns about ADA when it comes to being that close to Christmas before we have our break. I do understand that no matter what we do, there's going to be an ADA impact, but we'd had some concerns from classified staff in particular about that, and so what we're asking to do is just shift that week from after New Year's to shift it to the week before, so that way they're off the week prior to Christmas, the entire week prior to Christmas, and then they get the full time to do those activities, and then they'd come back to school on January 2nd.
So just for clarification, though, this has been already approved and in place for the last 6 months, probably?
Mr. Chairman and Trustee Barton, my understanding, having spoken to Mr. George, is that the DLT did not approve the calendar change. It was the calendar committee made a decision, but they did not go through the traditional protocol to get finally approved. And I think that's part of the concern, is that folks who may have otherwise had input on that process may have pushed for something different. To the extent the board doesn't want to do anything, that's fine with me, but I do think that it would behoove us. I think it would be beneficial, especially to our classified staff, if we were to augment this in this way to be able to give people more time to be able to celebrate, the main reason we even have this break in the first place. Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Katie. Yeah.
So I'm looking at where there is a calendar is in the Priest River Lamana High handbook that we have, and so I'm trying to look at that and see. So right now, 18th through the 21st is orange, which means those are student days. And then it looks like they're off the 2nd through the 4th. So you're saying to shift that so they're off the 18th through the 21st, and they're back in place by the 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the idea, like again, going just back to the idea that it gives people more time to celebrate the holiday before the holiday happens, because otherwise you're basically right on top of it when you get out of school. Which the hard thing is that we have Christmas on a Monday this year. That's really what's making this difficult. We have extra days built in our calendar already. No, we wouldn't need to.
Yeah. But wasn't there a committee that was already in place that actually made this calendar and voted on by the entire staff?
No.
Yes, please. I just want to make sure we don't.
So the proper protocols for calendar were not actually followed properly last year. The calendar was presented to you guys without it going through the DILT, through the district instructional leadership team. The superintendent just gave it to you. So what typically would have happened is a survey went out to the entire staff, certified and classified, on a 30-minute edition, 45-minute edition, and 60-minute edition to the school day. And then when that data came back to us, the calendar committee put together a draft calendar on the 60-minute. There were still questions. Normally that would have been vetted through the district instructional leadership team, and they would have brought up issues like this and had that discussion. That wasn't done. It was just presented to the board. And at that meeting, I was asked who was on the committee, and which is why I balked, because it should have been district instructional leadership team, not the calendar committee. So the calendar committee is a committee within district instructional leadership team, not a entity that stands out by itself. So that's kind of, so you could argue it didn't get properly vetted in that regard. A couple concerns that I expressed to Mr. Durst as well with change in days. One of them is our old negotiated agreement requires a day off for staff after a holiday. So that could make it potentially whatever a negotiated agreement comes out to be. It could end up being a 2-day school week after school. And the rationale for the calendar committee was to try to avoid 3-day weeks. Understanding that there were, I think, 2 already existing. Help me out, Mr. Durst, we discussed those. They were the holidays.
After Martin Luther King Day and after
Martin Luther King
President's Day.
President's Day, yeah. And so understanding that those were 3-day weeks already, that we were trying to avoid those. But, yeah. And the calendar committee has reached out to me throughout the last couple of days and wanted me to express those concerns as well. So.
My only, I think this needs to, in the future, we need to also vet it better with the parents, but my one concern, and I think we're going to have to watch closely, is basically we've got Thanksgiving and that week off. The high school students are supposed to go that week. Then we've got basically 3 more weeks, and then they're off for 2 weeks. Call me old-fashioned, but we're going to need to see the learning loss in that and see how that is, because that's a lot of time off.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sort of, here you're at school, here you go for a couple of weeks, then you're off again. I think we're going to see some learning loss there.
All right.
Well, and I'd also like to point out that both Newport and Timberlake are taking those same 2 weeks off, so I don't know how that would impact, how that would adversely impact our district if we didn't take those 2 weeks off that we already have in the calendar. It looks to me like protocol would be to stick with the calendar that we have. Other districts are doing it, and it's been approved. I don't know if we should change it the week before we start school, or 2 weeks before we start school.
Any other debate?
This is conversation that has taken place with the staff, Mr. George. And I apologize when I walked out.
That's okay.
I needed to put drops in my eyes, so I missed the first part of this. So this is something that you and the calendar board have discussed, and now this is,
I've just shared their concerns with you. One of the other, what would normally happen, and I forgot to mention this part as well, is through DILT, then the district's instructional leadership team would then direct the calendar committee to send options out to the staff based on different vacation days. Going to the 4-day week, a lot of people were confused because we sent out options, but again, those were the 60, the 30, and the 45-minute additions to the day. Then we should have come back, sent out options on the 60-minute calendar, and that didn't happen. So that was, and instead just the draft calendar got presented to the board, not a finished calendar.
and so this, what we're looking at now, this is kind of the consensus of all the different conversations you've had with everybody, that this is the best one we came up with, this new one.
That was the consensus of the calendar committee, and then the admin team met about it, and then it was presented to the board the next Wednesday.
Okay.
So without any input from staff. So.
And I guess, and I wish we had time to also get some feedback. I understand it's important to get feedback from the staff, but I see this for, potentially for, and I don't know without, one of the things that I see by shifting it the way we're going to shift it and start the Tuesday after the 1st is, people up here again are, some of the families may be working for the resorts and working, headstrong up through before the resort, before the holidays, and then hoping for that couple of days after the 1st when, after people have kind of left up here to have some time with their family. So you have to think of the economy up here is a little different than the economy down in Priest River. And so there's some things there that, that I'm looking at. And I don't know if that's true for the community up here, but that would be my consideration. That's always been my consideration in terms of these calendars is trying to get a little bit more input from people before we made those changes. And not just staff, but the parents and how it affects them.
Mr. George, clarification, the calendar, the existing calendar now that we're looking at without the modifications, that is what you...
That is what you guys approved last year. Last school year. Yes.
Is that what you guys wanted? Is that the one you wanted?
That's what came out of the calendar committee and the admin meeting.
Okay.
It just didn't do that one more normal step.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so that's one we're going to approve. Yeah. But that's, okay.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Looks like Sandpoint has the same schedule also.
Which one? When you say same schedule, can you clarify?
Current approved.
Okay.
So Timberlake, Sandpoint, and Newport all have the same.
Okay.
So just clarification, they get off on the 21st and come back on the 8th?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So what is the motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion to maintain and keep the schedule that was approved by the board this spring and
Okay, I have a motion to keep the current schedule.
I
Do I have
will,
a second?
I will second that because I would like to do a deeper dive and make sure we,
Okay,
just
have a-
because we have it on there. this
I have
time.
a second from Trustee Hall. All those in favor of keeping the schedule as is, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the schedule stays as is.
And I guess I would say is that, hopefully we can do the process right next time and
Okay.
field everybody.
Next, I need a motion to bring to the table consideration and approval of facilities use agreement for Priest River Junior Tackle.
can we add those together? Chair Rutledge, could we put those together? So we put G, H, and I all in the same motion, just to save on time. It looks to me like they're all the same would you like to? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angie. Yes, cheer and Priest River Junior.
Wait a second, okay.
I'll second that motion that she made to combine those three.
Okay, so I have a motion to combine the facilities use agreements of
Junior tackle, cheer,
junior tackle, cheer,
and youth baseball.
okay. Do I have a second?
And I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of considering those as a block, please say aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So there was a little typo that's junior tackle, but yes, we're the same club, so we have the same insurance and everything. I just want to give you some background on us. We've been using the facilities for 4+ years now that we've been a club. We have 60 football players that are 3rd grade to 6th grade. We also have 40 cheerleaders. So we have a huge group, and they're phenomenal. The cheerleaders go to competitions throughout Lakeland, Lewiston. They travel all over. They're tiny and they're amazing. I think they were at the Timber Days parade. We also have, in that, we buy a lot of equipment, and we let the schools use that equipment. We have a sled that the junior high uses. We bought new pads for the high school sled, so we donate a lot of money back to our schools. They're up and coming little guys, so they go through the program into the school. What else? Any questions?
I guess you're all the same group, so you're not competing with each other on the fields, and I just want to make sure we have no competition on those fields in any other way.
No, and like Mr. Durst said, we're going to have a meeting with Ryan after all this, the athletic directors and the principals and stuff, and the clubs, they do a good job of, if they do have a conflict with the schools come in and let them know ahead of time, hey, we need the field at 5:30, we're going to have to bump you, so they'll bump back an hour or whatever they need to do, so.
So I'll make a motion to approve the facilities use agreement for the Priest River Junior High tackle, the Priest River Junior High cheer, and the Spokane Indians youth baseball.
I second that.
Okay, I have a first and second. All those in favor of?
Actually, let's make an amendment before we do that, because it's not the Priest River Junior High.
Oh, it's just the...
It's Priest River Junior tackle, Priest River cheer,
Oh, Priest River,
and
okay.
The Spokane Indians youth baseball.
Okay.
It's not affiliated with.
I have a first and a second.
And I'll second the amendment.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting facilities use agreement for Priest River Junior tackle, Priest River Junior High cheer, and
It's just junior cheer.
Junior cheer, and Spokane Indians youth baseball, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approved. Next, I need a motion to bring to the table district virtual learning plan discussion.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table the district virtual learning plan discussion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Trustee Barton, first from Trustee Hall. Discussion.
I think this was mine, and I apologize, I didn't see that on there. I had just looked at a bunch of different programs that would offer virtual learning pieces to students, and it was intriguing. I thought for kids, especially if they have some sort of special needs, it gave them a different avenue to be able to look at these things. Several of them included a wide variety of subjects, math, science, history. So it wasn't like it was just a game. I mean, they were actually learning skills and programs. And so I apologize, I did not see that on there, and I will provide you with the details for next meeting.
Do you want me to table that?
Yes, please, I'd like to.
I'll make a motion to table it.
I'll second that.
I don't know if there's a time certain or,
The next meeting?
okay, next meeting.
Okay, so I have a first and a second to table virtual learning plan discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, it's tabled. Next, I need a motion for consideration and approval of student handbook for West Bonner County School District schools.
I'll make a motion to bring to the table consideration and approval of student handbooks for West Bonner County Schools
Okay, do I
District.
have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Vice Chair Brown. Discussion?
I think there's some consideration, things that were brought forth. If we go down through, start with the Priest River Lamana High School student handbook, there were some concerns about the graduation requirements being in alignment with the policy.
Yeah.
Can you
Do you
put those up?
want me to, sorry?
No, sorry, so we could see them.
Well, I wanted to start with this totally revamped. I completely redid it, so it looks completely different.
Right.
Hopefully you got it early enough to look through it.
I did.
I've been getting emails from staff saying, hey, you've mistyped this, Mr. George, you have this typo, and so on. Mission vision statement is reworded and revised. Just a couple highlights here. PRLHS mission statement: enable all students to develop their individual potential by acquiring the knowledge, skills, and values needed to become lifelong, responsible, active, and productive members of their community. Any mission or vision statement needs to be approved by the board, so I want to make sure you heard that. Vision statement: PRLHS is one of our community's most important investments. By building better Spartans, we are providing generations of future leaders with the skills and mindset necessary to lead our community. Excellence in all we do. And you notice on the front page I have excellence in all we do. I have no problem or beef with strive for greatness, but I felt like the high school needed to have kind of its own little slogan as well. Address some other issues. Dress code. We're directed to look at dress code with the parent committee last spring. That is on page 10. Randy, you able to keep up with me? Okay, so page 10. There was a typo that Mr. Ball, thank you for listening, Pete, pointed out to me in the dress code. I divided it up by lower body, upper body, undergarments, and then all clothing. The issue that Mr. Ball pointed out to me was confusing, so the wording has been changed for shorts, skirts, kilts, and dresses must not be more than 2 inches above the knee. This should be below the fingertips and standing at rest. What I used for guidelines after talking to the parent committee was basically business casual. And you can look up online, you can Google business casual for women, business casual for men, and you've got pictures, guidelines, and all that stuff to make it very, very easy for parents and students to follow. Any questions about dress code?
Not the dress code, but just really quickly, you skipped over something really quickly on page 8.
I was going to get to that, sorry, go ahead.
Open campus, closed campus at lunch. I mean, there were some issues there. I also wanted to know, I think Katie Elsesser talked about this one for younger students, for freshmen who might actually be excelling. But also I wondered, because we increased that to 2.5 cumulative GPA, I'm wondering how that worked.
It worked very well. I had kids at semester coming up to me and saying, hey, Mr. George, my GPA's up. It's cumulative GPA, not their quarter GPA, so it's cumulative GPA. Hey, Mr. George, I got my GPA up, and I was like, sweet, I'll go get you a card printed. And so I'd go I laminate the cards for them, I handwrite their names on it ahead of time, and so that worked really well. The rationale for students not being in the parking lot, loitering in the parking lot, is there is no vice principal, no dean of students at the high school next year, so I am on my own. Sometimes Officer Davis is there, most days, but there's no way, actually even with him, assistant, and myself, you have to be outside, inside, and hallways monitored. Line of sight, it's a rule of thumb with admin. If you don't have line of sight, you're putting yourself at liability, which puts the district at liability. I don't know how I have line of sight of what kids are doing in cars. I don't have a way to, without sitting in every car and walking and looking in every car's window as to what kids are doing. We had kids doing things in vehicles last year that I weren't sure they should have been doing. I had reports. I had no way to confirm or deny eye. And so for the safety of our students, I feel it's that loitering in the parking lot should not be allowed. By the way, every other school that I've looked at that has open campus does not allow students to stay in parking lots. So,
Maybe something to think about, maybe working with the students, is to figure out if there's a spot that can address that privacy issue that was being,
yeah,
why
that's, and your point's a good one, the privacy.
the privacy issue.
I mean, there are some spaces they can be, but with 2 lunches next year, that makes that a little more difficult, whereas the hallways won't be open. But I do have concerns with how am I going to monitor by myself next year, it'd be 150 students at a time at lunch. So, and the parking lot adds one more place to do that. Honestly, my first year at Priest River Lamont High School, I'd never seen a school that I'd ever worked at a high school where kids were in the parking lot at lunch, and it blew my mind. And Mr. Kren and I really just couldn't figure out why kids were in the parking lot at lunch. That just was, it's a Priest River thing, I get it, but it's really not a safe thing to do. So.
Mr. George, it says there in parentheses that freshmen are not eligible for open campus. And I really liked your comment, because if we have a student in freshman class that is excelling, and, I'm not sure, I mean.
Well, actually, to clarify, I was actually arguing the first quarter requirement for sophomores. I'm fine with freshmen.
Okay.
I get that. Freshmen, they're young, they don't have their license. That they mostly be walking down the road and that, unless on campus or being put on their class campus. What my question was, that it was a change 2 years ago, right before school started, to require the GPA, which is fine. But so right now, if you're a freshman and you have a 4.0, a 3.0, whatever, if you're above a 2.5, you're still not allowed to leave the first quarter. But your first quarter is not going to affect your cumulative GPA, because your cumulative GPA is a semester. So there's really no change. So it's kind of weird to restrict them first quarter when their GPA was already set when they finished their freshman year.
So I thought I took that language. Did I keep that language in?
You leave it there. You left it on page 16 on lunch and cafeteria expectations.
Okay.
So it's just one sentence under lunch and cafeteria expectations. It says a 2.5 must be able to campus access your first quarter.
Oh, we don't even do quarters. I need to edit that. Our GPAs are figured by semester. I meant to change that to, so once they enter their sophomore year, they could be eligible. That's what I meant to change it to.
No problem.
So on page 16, that after a grade point average of 2.5 must be met before 10th graders will be allowed to leave campus. And then that sentence was in at that point.
So incoming, for clarification, incoming sophomores, if they have a cumulative already starting school year from freshman year.
Yep.
They'll be able to get to it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That was my intent. Thank you for pointing that out.
So we can't it's probably too early to eke the GPA up to 2.75. You know how I like to move it up.
Hold on, let me make a note here so I don't forget. That was page 16.
I don't think we can get that. It's sort of in between.
I brought my highlighters and everything with me because I knew Ms. Smarty would.
Well, and I'm seeing, there's some things there that I would offer to do your final formatting if you would accept it when you're done.
I would agree with bumping up to 2.75. I'll be honest, though, we have a lot of kids who are really, really great kids. They're responsible kids, and they really work their butts off to get that pass to the campus. And that would be.
No,
I would be negligent in my duties if I did not vouch for those kids.
So leave it at 2.5.
I would ask to please leave it at 2.5.
Okay, at least for this year.
We'll work on it. We'll get with our new staff. I have a feeling that we're going to get those GPAs up anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll go.
Yeah,
No pressure, new staff.
But we moved it from 2 to 2.5, so
Yes,
that's a start.
We're going in the right
That's good.
There was another edit on page 9, the cell phone policy. I don't know if you guys read through that already or not.
I sort of did.
We've adjusted the consequences. This was out of that parent meeting. I just want to make sure you saw that some things out of those parent meetings came to fruition. So first offense for a phone in class is going to be confiscated like it always was, kept by the teacher, returned at the end of the period. Second offense is going to be returned in the office, returned at the end of the day. Parent will be notified. That's a little bit of a change. Third offense, phone privilege is revoked for 1 week. And the student will be required to turn it at the office every day. Parent will be notified. Fourth offense is revoked for the remainder of the year. They'll turn the phone in for the remainder of the year. They get it back at the end of the day, every time, because I don't want kids driving home without their phones. And then again, parents are notified. They have to turn it in every day when they walk in, which creates kind of a nightmare of regulating. A kid has to turn their phone in. I get that, but the parent advisory committee and Mrs. Williams, we talked about this, felt like that was a battle we were willing to fight. So.
And we have a plan for when parents call and want to know about our plan in the office about how we keep it so we're not held liable for their phones.
Yeah, it's kept in the safe.
Perfect.
The other thing is you might put in there that parent is also means guardian, because I know we use parents, but we.
That the parent is legal guardian.
Yeah. So, but parent guardian, because that would be just, even if you just did it one place at the top to say parents equal to guardians.
I put that in the beginning somewhere,
Okay.
that parents, hereforth, parents refer to parents and or legal guardians.
Okay, you did get it in there. Okay, I missed it.
Because I knew you would bring that up.
I didn't do as good a job as usual. The other, there's a couple places, paragraph spacing, but I won't go into that.
Some of that was for formatting so it fit into the page neatly and for index purposes, or table of contents purposes.
Okay, and the busing I noticed on page 17.
Can we
Yes,
go back for a second?
When the bus, I just noticed that was on the agenda when I got here tonight, so I think I'm gonna have to make some edits depending on what gets approved for the bus. Is that what you're talking about, bus discipline?
That too, but it's also, instead of the transportation director, I think we're referring operations director. That probably
Yes.
should be
What
changed.
page is that?
Page 17. And then being consistent with the bus handbook, or the one that we're looking at.
I would still like to see where the cell phones are not used in the classroom at all.
That's addressed. Cell phones are only used under circumstances where the teacher tells them it's okay, like a Cahoots game that they're using as something like that.
Credit program for teachers.
Ms. Marty, where was that on page 17? Oh, busing. I got you.
It's under that sort of that.
It's the second to last paragraph.
Got it. District
last sentence
Transportation
under busing.
Director. Okay.
So it's.
We'll get to graduation requirements.
Okay, I think before you get there, 18, just because it's an opt-out item on 18 where it says individual students and their parents may request their names to be withheld from this list. To facilitate such requests, we have prepared an opt-out form for your use. You might think about putting that in bold so people see that it's an opt-out, just for highlighting purposes, so people recognize that.
And you're thinking that starting with the term individual students?
Yeah, just those two sentences, just to pop them out, might be something.
Okay, I'll make that bold.
That's a case-by-case basis.
That would be part of their 504, and that would be acceptable. Yeah. We have a student currently that has that. Yeah, federal law would trump. 90% attendance on page 23. Thank you, Ms. Katie, for pointing out that I had the word 5 and the number 7. On students can accumulate 5 and then in parentheses 7 absences per class each semester. That should be 7 going to the 4-day week.
7 to 7.
So
Okay.
I'll cross the word 5 out.
Got it.
That.
Okay.
Any others before we get to graduation requirements?
Oh, I guess I'm curious about the driver's license suspension dropout rule. Have we ever implemented that at all?
Yeah, that's state law.
Okay.
Yeah, our attendance secretary keeps track of that, and we'll send a list to DMV. I think they sent it to DMV.
Okay. Thanks. I think that's it. Nothing before the graduation step or criteria.
So you ready for that? The discipline plan, on page 19, the discipline plan has been changed a little bit. It used to just have 4 quadrants. So again, with our staff has improved their classroom management quite a bit. We've been hitting it pretty hard over the last couple of years. And now the staff is starting to take a little bit more responsibility for the discipline management of minor behaviors. And so I wanted to make sure that was reflected in the student handbook. So the classroom disruptions, the teachers will take care of the detentions and things like that. And then once it gets past that, after so many offenses, then it'll go to administration for in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, those things. So that was a change I wanted you to be at least aware of. It looks the same, but it's different. All right, so Brandy, graduation requirements are on page 20, starting on page 26. So the change from 56 credits, which is in board policy, we made that change at some point last year. So it did match the student handbook, but that actually was after the school year started with 56 credits, so Mr. Katie's correct. So we will need to make a change to board the policy on that. I don't know if accepting the handbook with the credits does that, or if you need to do that later. I'm not sure on that. But we will drop the credits down to 52 credits because the students can only earn 56. So an incoming freshman on the 7-period day can earn 56 credits total. And so we dropped that to 52 from 56. We'll still keep 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 4 years of science, and then technically it's 4 years of social studies with the government econ. Students can earn their personal finance credit in the econ class as long as the personal finance piece is taught in economics. So that'll be taken care of there. Senior project will not be a standalone class this coming year. A lot of that has to do with staffing, with only having 3 English teachers, 3. Won't be a standalone class, but it'll be a checkbox, and I'll get more into details on that at a different time, what that's going to look like. It'll be taken care of basically in their English classes.
Okay.
For all practice, because the state requirement is a research paper and a presentation. It's a state requirement, and that part will be taken care of in the English classrooms. The other stuff will be taken care of during at night.
Okay.
Question on the incoming seniors. So because if they have passed underclass, they're typically only going to need 4 credits on prior classes. Is that a concern?
That was this senior class was already a concern with that because they would have been the last class converting from the 6th period to the block. I believe this. So last year's senior class was the last one. Yes. So we're.
So right now, if they pass underclass, it's like 48 to technically 4 credits.
If they've already earned their 8 math, 8 science, 8 English, and that, then yes. So most of the change is elective credits.
I have a question about the senior project. What if they're doing dual credit classes and they're not actually in the building, but they are enrolled? How is that going to happen?
There's still going to be a presentation piece in this dual credit. They still have to make presentations.
Okay.
And so we can wordsmith that.
Okay. So it will be worked in?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll work it in. Yep. We will find a way. We always do. So.
I guess quickly on page 30, if we just kind of scroll, I don't know if people are ready to scroll down there. I have a question on those academic recognitions. Where's STEM fit in? Because we were giving credit, it seems like we were giving recognition for STEM. And has that gone by the wayside? Where's that?
Our current graduation requirements fit the STEM requirements. So basically, all of our graduates.
Are STEM, okay.
So it's kind of a moot point. There was no designation on a diploma. And so there was no way to know if a student had a STEM diploma or not. It was actually kind of something that the state kind of did and didn't really have.
Okay, that was just, I didn't see it there, and we sort of had it before, so I was curious.
I asked our counselor about that before she left, and she says, well, they're all checking those boxes. So. But out of the 4 years of science and the 4 years of math, that was the big one. And there were a few others, but our kids are.
And I just want some clarification for the valedictorian, salutatorian. If they are enrolled but are taking dual credit classes the entire senior year, are they still eligible for B?
They're still eligible.
Perfect.
There was a change in that. Thank you. Valedictorian, salutatorian. We had an issue this past year. Our valedictorian transferred to us his junior year. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Our student with the highest GPA transferred to us his junior year and was with us junior and senior year, and was not eligible for valedictorian because the language said they had to earn 2/3 of their credits from Priest River Lamont High School. So we made a change to make that to be considered for selection as valedictorian or salutatorian, students must have enrolled at Priest River Lamont High School by the end of their first quarter of their junior year. So that would allow a kid to still earn at least half their credits from Priest River Lamont High School. Dual credit, they're still earning credits at Priest River Lamont High School.
Okay, that's the question.
And maintain the full-time enrollment as defined by Idaho Code. What that protects us from is a student who only takes 2 classes their senior year.
But if they're enrolled in dual credit classes?
But if they're enrolled in dual credit classes, they can still be full-time.
Okay.
Because that dual credit still counts towards hours of enrollment with us. And full-time is 4 clock hours by the state of Idaho.
Okay.
And so as long as they are in 4 clock hours worth of classes, they are a full-time student with us.
All right.
Should we be changing where it says a 2.0 right there, since we're looking at a 2.5?
No, it's something different.
Pardon?
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still C average. We're just talking about the average, Mr. George.
Okay.
That's correct, that's how it's written.
What page is that?
I'm trying to think, it's probably.
30. Yeah, no, it's correct. I was just,
It's just identifying which is.
yeah.
See. I had nothing else there. Only, as I said, Mr. George, if I'd be happy to fine tune if you would like me to.
So I've already spent like 8 hours formatting it to fit. So in as few pages possible.
Thank you. It looks really good, though. It looks.
I do have one reminder is that, remember last fall we adopted some of the state policies regarding apprenticeships and work counting towards credits.
Yes.
So just a reminder that I don't mention those specifically in here, but it is in board policy. So I wanted to know if someone asks you a question about that, it's covered in board policy. I didn't feel like duplicating it in there. I've had a few parents already come and talk to me. Their kids have apprenticeship opportunities and questions of how they can, and I've assured them that that's in board policy. We're going to protect your kids. They're still our student. So.
Perfect, yeah, because I've had a couple of contractors that have said, I'm still very interested in doing that.
Yep. Yep. If they have a job at Burger Express, I believe it's every 10 hours a week, we can give them a credit. If they get those 10 hours a week for a semester, we give them elective credit for that.
Okay. Good.
So do we want to approve them separately?
Sure.
I would make a motion to approve the Priest River Lamont High School handbook with those changes that we have proposed.
Okay, I have
Or
a first on the,
discussed.
floor to accept the Lamont High School book, or handbook, thank you, with the changes. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, your book's passed. Okay,
Next one's the Idaho Hill, at least on our schedule.
I don't have anything to say unless you have any questions for me
Um,
or suggestions.
The one that I was wondering about, and I don't know if it's needed, I didn't say it for the other one, but I'm wondering where you talked about the start time for the school. It's the page with the school calendar on it. I just wondered if it's somewhere above the start time, it might say, just remind people it's a 4-day school week.
In this section?
Oh, no, it's down further. It's on the,
Okay, I didn't bring my
if-
a paper copy, but, okay.
it's down under, it's actually ways down.
Right there?
Yep.
Oh, that,
Yeah, right.
That would be a good place to put it.
You know, just maybe reminding people somewhere along there that it's, and under the school holiday one, which I think is down a
the
little
school
bit.
start time, I don't understand what you're saying. Doesn't it say school start?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
No,
Office
the-
hours are Monday through Thursday.
Okay.
Well, the one I'm looking at is the one that says West Bonner County School District, the school calendar with the dates, and then it has the start time and tardy bell. It's down, Susie, it's down, keep going. Where'd it go? It's down, it was down a ways, I guess. Well, it's not that far.
Can't look at that.
That would be great if we could get that in there.
Okay.
And the other schools also, Mr.
Oh,
George.
maybe right there?
Yes, at the bottom, when you scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see where it says that, and you might just remind people it's a 4-day school week or something.
Okay, so what did you want then?
Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday?
I think so. Just, I'm afraid people are going to look at this and they'll remember, but it's going to be new for people. And then the only other thing I saw was on the immunization, immunization law. I think we updated our policy last. We shortened we shortened the immunization law and because it says child born after September 1st, 2005, and those kids would be long gone. And that, I don't know what page that is on yours.
I want to say that was April, but we didn't.
What does it show on yours?
I know, I don't see the page number somewhere. Da-da-da. There, right there. That section, and I don't remember offhand the policy number, but we shortened that, the state shortened those numbers of policies of the immunization.
Okay,
And that would be the same for, I don't know, I think,
it'll be the same probably for the lake.
yeah, and then the PRE one might have just referenced, may have gotten rid of that and just referenced the law, so that might be the easier way to do it.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to see if there, but again, that was updated in the law, in our policy, I think.
okay.
And I think that was it. Think that was pretty much it. That was the big one that I kind of saw because I remembered us going through that.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept student handbook for Priest River or Idaho Hill?
I'll make a motion to accept the handbook for Idaho Hill Elementary.
Okay, I have a first, do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second from Vice Chair Brown. All those in favor of accepting handbook for Idaho Hill, please say aye.
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 Um,
Handbook's approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, who's next?
And it's the Priest Lake Elementary, and it would be, I think, Susie, the same thing where that immunization could be probably shortened and updated. That was, I think, the main one that I saw. And I can't remember where it is. I'm looking through to see if I can find it. And then maybe put on the calendar page, just remind people it's 4-day school week. maybe.
Right, same thing, sit
Yeah.
around the hill.
It's basically the same thing.
And I didn't hear clearly what you were saying before that. Was it the immunization?
If it's here, and I'm just trying to see if,
I believe it is. They're very similar.
yeah. So I would just update it
Okay.
on that one.
Okay.
And so I would make a motion to approve.
She's even got it there, Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. So do I have a motion to accept Priest Lake Elementary handbook?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
We have a motion from trustee Brown. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I mean, trustee Hall, Vice Chair Brown seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
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 I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have
Oh, Priest River, sorry. Jamaica. Sorry. Usually these are over 2 months, but, I mean, usually we get one that's 300 pages at this time of the year, so 227 pages, not bad.
Okay. Any questions?
Page 7, I found those URLs for the schoolloop.com don't work.
Yeah, it didn't work.
No, I checked that one.
Page 7.
And then the immunization policy too needs to be, that would be the same. And just, it was a couple of months ago that we updated that, so those are just the two
I
things.
want to say it was April or something like that when we did it.
And then did you have on there written Monday through Thursday also for the elementary?
Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Anything
put
else?
where the hours are because I don't have the calendar in mind.
And I'm assuming, and I didn't cross-check it with our milk breakfast, our meal prices, but I'm assuming everybody updated
We did
those.
that. The only thing that may change for me too is my start and end time. I don't know if the busing can get to the junior high in time, so I might have to do like a few minutes adjustment or where they pick up, and I may have to change my pickup place for pickup parents.
Okay.
But what I tried to do at my site was allow parent to pick up earlier because we don't have to go as many minutes. And then buses have to follow a certain schedule for when the other schools get out, and so they could be later. And it used to be opposite. We used to have our buses picked up first and then our walkers picked up.
Okay.
So I adjusted it based on the length of the day.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other changes?
Not from what
Okay.
I had seen before.
All those in favor, or wait, I need a motion to accept Priest
River
Elementary.
Elementary.
Thank you.
Student handbook, I'll make a motion to accept Priest River.
I have a first. Do I
I'll
have a
second that.
I have a second from trustee Barton. All those in favor of accepting Priest River Elementary handbook, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, meeting adjourned.
All right. All right.